Whew. All right, what's up, y'all? So this is not how I expected to be visiting y'all on the YouTubes, but you know what? I made an executive decision here. I decided I wanted to see if a crowd or an audience would watch a live stream of mine in the evening, because I realized going back and thinking I always did my YouTube streams. By the way, I don't know what that weird line is that appears every once in a while. We'll try to figure that out down the road. But I always did all my YouTube streams early, right? And, I wake up or even if I did multiple streams in a day, my YouTube stream was always the early one. But then I realized I have a bunch of you viewers that aren't necessarily available in the morning. Y'all are either working or whatever. And some of y'all are on the other side of the world. So I figured I'm going to do an evening stream and we're going to see how it goes. And if it goes well, then we may rotate more of them in. If it doesn't go well, then maybe we'll stick to the morning. No matter what, I'm probably still going to do some number of evening streams just because. I mean, I feel like it's the right thing to do since I have such an audience in different places. I say such an audience like I'm that big. I barely hit 22,000 subscribers. But you know what I'm saying. Hey, Astro MTG, how's it going? Rick asks, how's my day been? Very busy. Very, very busy. But cool. Oh, I actually put them away already. I was going to show y'all. I finally got around to going to the post office because I hadn't been in days. But if you watch my 2 shorts I put up, I have some info from what I got at the post office today. But I got a really cool gift from a viewer, which I was really not expecting, but it was super nice. So I was really thankful for that. And I also had a package that I sent forever ago to somebody as a prize, a giveaway, and it finally got returned like forever later. So I did a couple of shorts covering that, though. It's actually some really cool stuff. Paul that says, fancy seeing you live on YouTube. I do go live on YouTube sometimes, but it's always in the morning. We were just talking about that. So maybe I'll do more in the evening if a bunch of people want to watch evening streams. What's up, dude? Love the content. How's life? Pretty good. Pretty good. I'm one of those people, I don't really complain very much. I think I've just been through a lot, so I know how bad stuff can be. So a lot of the times, if it's not awful or disastrous, I kind of go like, yeah, it's all right. I mean, there's some stuff going on right now where like my views are a little bit down and, I could use some people sharing my stuff or whatever. But otherwise, I don't know. I don't have much to complain about, though, truthfully. Things are pretty good. Ball says, I basically never watch live streams, always prefer videos. But I saw you on and thought I'd stop by for a minute. Well, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate that. Thanks for breaking your rule. Jason Dobbins. By the way, I saw, Jason, were you our newest YouTube member? I think I just saw that earlier, literally just a second ago before we went live. So thank you for that. Much appreciated. Also, give me a Y for yes, an N for no in chat. Can you see the join button on whatever device you're using? Because I looked on all mine and I could see it, but I had somebody send me a message on Discord today saying they couldn't see that I had memberships available. But I'm not sure what would be different because everything I checked, they all had it. And then I checked other people's stuff from my different devices and I could see it on theirs. So it all seemed like everything was working. So I don't know. And I've had people joining the channel, so I don't know what the issue is. And I was using like different devices. So I don't know. Okay, looks like it's showing up for everybody. So I don't, that's weird. I don't know. Maybe they just didn't understand what they were looking at or something. I don't know. That type of stuff happens. Oh, Jason says no. Well, Jason, yours probably may not show up because you already joined. That may be why yours doesn't show up. But yeah, everybody's saying yeah on PC, Chris. Okay, cool. Then that's good. Lowry says, hey, recent sub, and I've been loving the content. It really helped me get creative with my deck building. That's kind of the thing there, is that I kind of want to reinforce that about my channel, right? My deal has never been about building the perfect deck, playing perfectly, whatever. Like, I'm not even focusing on that a little bit. A lot of times I ignore a lot of the comments that even comment on that stuff or whatever because it's not the goal of the content. It's just to show people there are options or ways you can use weird cards. Or if I see a cool deck that people may not know about, feature that so they know it's even a thing that's out there, right? Like, that's what I'm doing. And then just doing fun streams where if people have questions, I can answer their questions and help them out. And share cool facts from the industry that people don't know about, or do card spotlights and like, hey, here's something you didn't know about this cool card or whatever. Like, That's what my content's about, you know. So it's cool to know that it's well received in the way it's intended to be. Unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people that want content to be what they want it to be. So, you know, if they're a magic grinder and they're going to all the RCQs or whatever, they want that to be the thing. So if you're not playing perfectly, or you're not playing top decks, they come through and be all ragey about it. But it's like, sorry, you know, that's not what we do. The same way that some people are like, well, I don't know why you put this card in there when it's a card everybody's playing. And it's like, well, if it's the card people are having to deal with or the card that's the best for the deck, it's going to go in there, right? So you get people on both sides that want it to be what they want it to be. But ultimately, you know, as a creator, you know what you're good at, you figure out your lane, and then you just drive that lane, you know, and do as much as you can with it. You can't, but it's likely because you're already joined. Yeah, that's probably the issue there. Says you're high. Don't feel bad. You know, if that's how you relax, you do your thing, man. I got no problem with it. What's my actual name? I don't really put that out there when I'm doing content. I just refer to myself as PowrDragn, but my name is out there. It's Daquan. It's not like it's a secret. Anybody who knows anything about me before I started doing content, my name's out there. So, but generally when doing content, I respond to PowrDragn for everything except for like my podcast, because that's where me and my co-host Brian just use first names all the time. But it's mostly for branding purposes. So if something shows up somewhere, something gets clipped, that's the thing that's associated with it, which is the brand. Whenever I'm talking about stuff, sharing stuff, whatever. If it comes from something personal or I'm doing a personal story or whatever, then I'll just go ahead and use my actual name. It's more of a business decision than anything else, more than like a safety decision. I mean, you know, people have different reasons. I don't know about y'all, but fools playing blue just make me want to put a hole in the wall. You know, here's the thing though, like, especially the mono blue decks. And this is what I've said in several videos, that if you want to beat those decks, the two easiest things to do is, one, just get stuff down early, right? They'll try to counter the first couple of things, but they don't have that many counters all told. They really don't. So you get one or two early creatures down, and now they're on the back foot and having to force a deal with that. And the minute they have to start tapping out to deal with that, or just play like an early Jhin just to have something to block with or whatever, then you just start using your removal cards. You use one during their end step, they'll probably try to counter to protect their thing. And then on your turn, you kill it. And now they're way behind. That's literally how you deal with those. Like, my problem with those matchups is just they're not very interactive. It's like if you get ahead, you just stay ahead and then they die. Like, I've only lost once where I got a couple of early things. And I think it was just because they just sick ripped all their creatures and they had like double Serpent, Haughty Djinn on like back-to-back turns or something. But like, outside of those rare cases, that's my issue with it. Like, I don't think the deck's bad or anything. Like, if they were to run in against mid-rangey or control decks all the time, they would probably have a shot. But I don't know how those decks would reliably beat the soldier decks or mono red, even for that matter. I would feel that both of those are going to be very tough matchups for a deck like that, because they have no hard removal. They don't have blockers to throw in the way. You know, they don't have planeswalkers with reusable abilities. So, like, I just can't imagine those are good. Respect anything dragon related. That's fair. How long have I been playing? Wow. Since nearly the beginning, like end of year 1, beginning of year 2, something like that. Like, actually, that's not totally. Yeah, I guess it was like around year 2, because it was when I bought my stuff. Unlimited and Revives were both on the shelf at the same time. You love Azorius? I do when it's. I also do when it's being aggressive, right? When we're moving the game forward and we're advancing the game state, I'm good with it. When we're just playing it for slow control and playing long, grindy games, not so much. Do you think Explorers should have had Sliver Queen over Sliver Hive Lord? Not particularly. I don't really care either way. I think if you want it to be closer to the formats people play, it probably has to be Hive Lord, because Sliver Queen doesn't exist in Modern or anything really. So I don't know, but they'll probably both get printed at some point and be available. I think that's a weird point to be upset over, honestly. Run blue out of cards, blue is a pain and not unbeatable. That's true. If you're playing super mopey mid-range deck, you're going to lose to blue deck. Yeah, that's fair. You will. Will they ever print a creature that fetches a board wipe? Probably not. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, I'm sitting there thinking, like, why would they do that? But like, I think my problem is I can't even, like, would you put it on Well, honestly, I'm not even sure. Like, it would have to be a specific card, right? It would have to say, like, this card goes and gets farewell or whatever, right? Like, you can't. Yeah, I don't know. Probably not. Probably not. That just doesn't make a lot of sense. I can't think of like how you would specifically template it that it would be worthwhile, or that decks that would even want that. Because once it gets out of standard, it's probably going to be worse because there's just better sweeper effects and probably better creatures to play. And then in standard, you literally would be forced to pair those cards all the time to go get that sweeper, which would be kind of weird. So yeah, I'm probably not in on it. Transmute can go get a thing if he has the right cost, sure. But I mean, who's gonna play a creature that has like transmute? I don't know, 5 or 6 or whatever to get the best sweepers. Probably not something you'd waste a turn doing. You've been playing Joda, even though it flops a lot. It's still a favorite. Hey, there's nothing wrong. You can always have a pet deck. That's cool. Nightclubber and Slowkirk is like a softboard white. I mean, it does some stuff. that's a interesting set of cards. Uh, just a thought. Wasn't upset over it. Just dirty. They didn't bring Urborg. The thing is though, like we would have just been printing Urborg to print it, and I think we've had a recent reprint of Urborg, actually two. So I don't think it was necessary for it to really be in the current Dominaria set, really. Having fun stealing creatures for with Mindslinger. Ah, yeah. So yeah, okay. So here's what I want to do because I don't know how long. We're not going to do a long stream tonight. This is more of a test, but a lot of y'all actually came on, so maybe I'll do more evening streams. I was not expecting there would be a group of people who want to really be on YouTube at this time. So it's kind of pleasantly surprising. So maybe I'll do some more evening streams. But for now, let's go ahead and let me fire up. Actually, I have to open Aaena right now. What am I looking forward to? People ask those questions all the time, and I feel bad because I'm not the hot take guy unless I have just like good information to share with you, but like literally nothing. Like the same thing in this set when people ask what was I looking forward to, like the answer was nothing. Like I just fun cards. Give me fun cards I can build with. Like the problem is I'm not too attached to story stuff. I mean, like Magic's like fantasy story stuff for our card games and stuff is so ethereal anyway and can change for any reason, so I don't really get attached to it. It's not like we have now. Once we start doing, I don't know, animated series and TV series or whatever, and canon means something, then maybe I'll be more invested. But I don't know. It's when I see stuff for games and continuity, it's like just give me something cool related to it, and I'm good. Yeah. So yeah, so I don't really have a preference. Anything that comes out in the set, I'm probably going to be good with. It's 3 p.m. and audio. I have finished work. Hey, good times. Good times. Thoughts on the combat research in a Shana Denick Bant deck? When I get it out, it's been a consistent game winner for me. Combat research. All right, well, let's go take a look. That's a good question. Combat research. Let's take a look at this card. Oh, I mean, I don't know. It's fine. I mean, we've had versions of this card all the way back to Curiosity, right? They've made some version of this every couple of years. It's fine. I'm not gonna say it's good or bad. I mean, it's totally okay. I just think it's one of those things that, like, I don't like investing a bunch of cards into a thing to just like, because this is value once you connect, but I tend to want value that's just going to end the game a lot of times. So for me personally, I'd be more likely to play Audacity than play this because I can just get bigger hits. I can trample through. I can get to draw cards off Shana because she just draws cards anyway, so I don't need to play two different things that draw cards, right? So for me, this card wouldn't make a lot of sense for me to play. However, if you just like the card, it's not like it's a bad card. But yeah, for me, I'm not getting a value out of it because it's an enchantment. It's not helping me get really extra damage I wouldn't get otherwise. Though on a legendary creature, you do get +1/+1, right? But I don't know. It's fine. I'm not going to tell somebody not to play it. I'm just saying for my builds, I probably wouldn't play it. Yeah, Silky Weekly gets it. I'm already drawing a lot of cards even without attacking, so I don't need the combat research. That's kind of, at least in the last version that I built. I had like, I don't know, what that deck have, like 8 ways to gain life? So there were many times I was drawing 2 or 3 cards a turn without ever even attacking. So like, I probably wouldn't even have considered combat research for that deck because they're just, like, what am I going to do with one? I mean, drawing cards is nice, but what am I going to do with one more card, right? I'd rather be a card that advances the game state in some way. Julio says, I've been thinking about Kodama Gruul deck that ramps into Titan, but looks like an aggro deck. Any thoughts? That's just trying too hard. You can win the game well before Titan, and then if you don't get Kodama, you're just going to have a Titan gumming up your hand with no other real ramp spells, when realistically you could just play a bunch of versions of Gruul. Oh, I think my last Gruul deck, actually, if you go look at my channel, actually played Kodama and didn't have that, and the deck was just fine. I can probably bring that up because it was like last week, actually. So it wasn't that long ago. Yeah, it was on December 22nd. So yeah, here you go. I'll just post it in the chat. There you go. That's the Gruul deck. I'm pretty sure I had Kodama in that one. I didn't look it up, but I'm pretty certain. If not, it's still a really good Gruul deck, and you might consider playing it just because. You don't play on Arena, but am curious if anyone has seen any decks using it. Have you seen any decks abusing that card? Falaja Wayfarer, I believe no. Because I want to say I looked at it to try to build a deck with it. Is that how? Did I not spell that right? Wayfarer. I don't know why that card's not coming up. Maybe I don't own it? Like, that's possible. Nope. All right. Then maybe I have no idea. Falaja. Nope, I don't know why it's coming up. But I feel like I know the card you're talking about, but it's definitely not coming up for me. Dualcraft Trainer has been my sleeper bomb. Man, y'all are just naming some random cards here. Dualcraft Trainer. Wow, 4 mana for a 3/3. I don't even... Let's see. First strike. At the beginning of combat of your turn, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, target creature you control gains double strike. Yeah, I probably wouldn't play this card. It's not terrible. I mean, it is a 3/3 first striker, but for 4 mana, like, we can get so many better things. You can play Wandering Emperor. You can play a couple of different angels that are still good, and they just fly over the top, so you don't have to worry about first strike. Like, yeah, like, and this is a good example for me. Like, sometimes cards aren't bad, but like if you put them on a 10-point scale, maybe this comes in at like, I don't know, let's say 5.5 or a 6, right? But then you look at a Wandering Emperor that's probably like a 9.5 or maybe a 9, right? Or I don't know, the angel will let you play stuff out of the graveyard, right? That's probably at least a 7, 7.5, right? So you kind of look back and say, well, why am I playing a 5.5 and I could just play it? Now, if you're resource light and you don't have anything to play, then yeah, go ahead, just play the Dualcraft Trainer, right? Like, you got to play what your budget can afford or what your collection has available. But if not, then like, yeah, just play the better card for that cost. Oh, Falaji, that's why. I had it wrong. All right, let's see what card we're talking about. Falaji Chain Dancer, Falaji Dragon Engine, Falaji Excavation, Falaji Archaeologist, Falaji Vanguard. I have no idea which one you're talking about. Maybe the Vanguard is what you were talking about? Maybe that? Okay, yeah, then I'm assuming I don't know what the Wayfarer is. It's not even coming up on my thing. So I don't even know that card. Like, I thought I knew what you're talking. I thought it was this, the Vanguard. Was what I was thinking. That was the first thing that came to my head. But I don't know what a Falaji Wayfarer is. If whatever it is, it doesn't come up for me in Arena. So I'm assuming it doesn't exist in my world. I've been playing around with Belcher in Historic on Arena, not very high win rate. But that's the kind of thing. Once upon a time, Belcher was a really good deck. Especially, you know, in I was gonna say Vintage, but not Vintage, Legacy. And I think just as more cards came out and the people that play Legacy just got better over time, it just lost its way, really, and it's really hard to go off. When we do charity events and stuff, I still see people who will register them and show up and play just because I like playing their favorite throwback decks and stuff. Like, we do the Hunter Burt Memorial Open every year, and there's some legacy high dollar side events and stuff. And you'll normally see like one person register something like Belcher, but you know, they don't have high hopes of doing well. It's just kind of the way it is. Oh, that's why. It's a commander card. That's why it doesn't show up in here. Like, it was weird because the name sounded familiar, but then when I thought about it, I was thinking about Vanguard, and I was like, oh, that's why I've heard the name before, because it's a commander thing, not a standard thing. Well, there you go. that explains so very much. Thanks for the clarification. that makes it so much better. Yeah. So yeah, any questions? Just keep popping them in there. We'll go through questions. If you want to get, here's what we're gonna do, because I will always take deck ideas. Here's the thing. Okay, so before we get into that, let me give you a couple of quick things. I like saying this because I still get people who will do it or ask all the time. So I just want to, like, 1 minute here to clarify some things. But I don't normally take deck lists through any form of DMs. So if you shoot me a message, if you just shoot me a random email, you shoot me a message on Twitter, you leave it in a comment on YouTube, I literally ignore it or I delete it. As soon as I realize it's a deck list or somebody talking about a deck, I just delete it. Mostly because I want to discourage that activity, because one, on YouTube, I want to keep the comment section at least useful for the people who are looking for information or maybe have a similar related question or want to know if the video is good or bad, you know, that type of stuff. I want that there. In my other DMs, I actually just need them clear for business. You know, I'm dealing with, hopefully, you know, like recently Wizard of the Coast or my Ultra Pro brand partners and stuff. Like, I need to have those available for other things. So and the few times I have actually broken my rule to try to help somebody with the thing, immediately they want to send me another thing, right? So I don't do that. However, when I am streaming on Twitch, I have channel points you can spend. On YouTube, as we're going to do today, when I do an open call for stuff, I will let people submit things. If you do, and I'm not telling you have to, you will be able to go in the queue just period whenever I say go. But if you want to be prioritized, you can leave a minimum of 99 cents on a super chat and we'll put you in the queue ahead of other people, because there's got to be some balancing factor, and I do make a little bit for the effort. Other than that, if you are a member here on YouTube at the $4.99 level for the month, I do have a forum. You can just submit me the deck list and you can get private help that way anytime, all the time. Well, as soon as I have a moment to take it and really, like, you know, give you good feedback. But it is actually free-ish, and it's available all the time as long as you don't abuse it. I just ask people don't send more than like 2 a month, so I just don't get so bogged down and I can still help everybody. So there are ways you can send me deck lists, but just shoving it out into the ether or filling my inboxes or whatever is not going to get you the response. Like, I try to keep it organized so that, one, my workflow does not get impeded, but also each person can get the attention that they want for their deck list. And I think so far it has worked very well for me. And unfortunately, whether you believe it or not, like, that's a thing I've talked to other creators about. And if you don't regulate it, everybody does the same thing. They just want to keep shoving messages into your inbox. People want to, every video you post, you end up getting 10 people that want to post comments about their deck list or whatever, even if it's not related to the video. And it's just like, it's just a bad feeling. So you get to where you start curating it, discouraging people from doing it, and then your stuff just becomes better and more useful. Why wouldn't it be legal in a 60-card deck? Commander cards just aren't. Saw your videos on Zeotora. Is it worth it to build a deck around him? Or is it not that competitive? One, I thought Zeotora was feminine, so I would say her, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a him. I don't know the lore. Building around it, I don't know. The thing is, I don't think that's a card you necessarily build around. Like, there's no mechanic that it really facilitates. It just does what it does. It's a big 6/6 for 6 that also lets you fling things at people. Like, you don't have to build around that. You just, if you're playing the colors and you don't have anything on the top end and you want to fill it in with that, it's a reasonable filler. Toss 2 in your deck, right? I think there's cards. There are some cards that you build around, because if you don't, you'll never get to use what it does, right? There's cards like Zeotora that it's just going to do what it does, right? You don't need anything special. Zeotora is just going to do what Zeotora does. And at worst, it's a 6/6 flying dragon. So, yeah, go for it. If you're playing the right colors and your mana facilitates it, go ahead and play it. I don't think you have to worry about building around. Oh, would be a full-time job doing that? Yeah, you're talking about responding to deck lists and oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then if you don't respond or you respond the wrong way, people get upset. You know, because there are people that like they'll say, "Hey, I want help with this." And then you like give them all the reasons with all the changes you would make or whatever. And then they get mad and want to start arguing with you. And it's just like, "Dude, you reached out to me for free. You ate my time. I took like 30 minutes to help you out and now you're mad at me?" Like, you know, so at least when somebody is going through the effort of being on a stream or they're a member or whatever, like they're already at least reasonably invested. They already understand your perspective or your mindset a little bit more. So the information is taken less defensively and more constructively, and that makes that whole transaction just a lot better anyway. Here's how to make Luminarch Aspirant not a busted card. No, it's just a busted card, and that's okay. It just is what it is. You know, if any of the Magic streamers have ever considered doing something like an arena league using private matches, always thought that would be cool. There's several people that run tournaments and stuff. Like, do you mean like private matches against them? I don't really understand. Like, yeah, there's several people. I know that the one James runs like, I don't know if he does it. I don't know if it's monthly, but like every 6 weeks or so or 8 weeks, he's run a tournament. And like Jim Davis has one, I think that's sponsored by Cool Stuff that him and the one James do commentary for. There's another dude that does like the Pizza Box Open. That's a thing. So like there's some definitely tournaments that are happening for sure. I mean, you can just go on MTG Melee and just go look up tournaments that are happening and sign up. A bunch of them are like free to like $5. I mean, like almost no entry fees on a lot of them, so it's super cheap to play in most of them. DZ, how's it going? Allow it to float 1 mana until the end of turn. I don't know what even you're getting at there. Hey, John Aquino, how's it going? I'm curious if you're curious to know if I ever participated in a Pioneer RCQ. If so, how was your experience? No, I haven't played in any RCQs. The last rounds I played were pre-COVID. I did pretty well, qualified for what we called the big tournaments at the time, so that was cool. But I just played standard, but it's no different than a tournament. I mean, anytime you go play in a tournament, you have to assume you're probably going to give up like 6 to 8 hours of your day if it's local. 10 to 12 if you have to drive an hour and a half plus to get to the event. And sometimes they're going to be shorter. Every once in a while, they might be longer. But realistically, like you're going to sign up to an event. It's going to start somewhere between 10 and noon, depending on the venue. And you're going to have 6 to 8 rounds of play with the top 8 cut, right? So you just know you're going to be playing for a while. Usually 6-ish rounds. Very few stores do big enough where you're going to do 7 or 8. But you just have to plan on, if you're doing well, make sure you have 8 to 10 hours cut out for your day, because that's probably what you're going to need. Let's see. Streamers versus other streamers. I mean, here's my question to that, Justin. What's the benefit? And I'm not saying that to like attack you, but I'm genuinely curious because like I could sign up a bunch of events. Like I could go get a bunch of streamer friends and make content of us just playing each other. But what's the real benefit to both to the streamer and to the audience, right? Other than just seeing people play. Now, sometimes that might just be it. Y'all are just excited to see people play, right? That might be the answer. But my thing is, like, let's say, I don't know, whatever. We get a random pile of streamers. I beat 3 of them. I lose through 3 of them. Like, does that mean I'm better than the 3 I played? Does it mean I'm worse than the 3 I played? Like, no, that's just whoever won the games on that given day. Or we just played decks that matched up poorly, or who knows what, right? And I'm not sure what the gain is because let's say I invite people onto my channel to do that. You get to know of a person, but you don't really get to know anything about them because your only interaction is seeing them just play cards, right? Whereas if I have them on the channel and maybe we do like, hey, why don't we alternate picking our sleepers for the set? Like we did with like when I was on SBMTG's channel, right? And Dev over there is really cool. And instead of playing, we did like, hey, let's do our sleeper picks. So let's do our favorite cards from the set or whatever. And just through discussions, his viewers got to know more about me, right? Had we just played games, it would have been like, all right, he built a cool deck, and then that would have been it, right? They would have had a video for, I don't know, 30 or 45 minutes of us playing a set of best of 3 or whatever, and that would have been it, right? That's not nearly as exciting or beneficial to the viewer, I don't think. I think y'all getting a different perspective from somebody else that maybe thinks differently than me or plays different formats or whatever would probably be more beneficial to you as a viewer than just seeing me go to battle with them. At least that's my perspective. That's why I always ask people, is it just to see people battle? I mean, because if so, that's valid. Like, but I'm just wondering if there's any other like inherent value or something that I'm just missing to make it worthwhile. Because that also is good to know if we're trying to produce the content to be what y'all want it to be, you know? Then at the end, you can turn and pay. Oh, y'all are talking about other stuff. What do I think is the strongest aggro decks in one of or traditional? Oh, I think you're saying best of one or traditional. And do you have any cool ideas for an egg deck or in the aggro deck in the future? Wow. Okay, when you're abbreviating things in there, it gets tough to read. What do I think is? There's a lot of good aggro decks. I mean, we've played a lot on the channel. The obvious, like the mono reds are good. The various soldier decks are good. Gruul is good. There's a couple of Rakdos builds that are pretty solid. So yeah, I think any of those are, hell, even mono green still has a shot. I mean, that still surprises you every once in a while when it pops up on the ladder. So yeah, I would say any of those are quality. Do you have any cool ideas for a deck? I mean, I got plenty. Hang around the channel. Like, I got a lot of stuff. I mean, you know, I play a lot of aggro decks, so feel free. Hey, Lancelot, welcome. The monetization would be difficult. I agree to that 100%. But on a neutral channel with both cams, it was very cool to see them banter. CGB did some with Crokies, I think. Yeah, but here's the thing with that CGB Crokies thing. Well, one, they amped it up for forever, but it's also two people that already have two big followings, right? So it almost didn't matter if it was good or not. They were going to get views regardless because their audiences were already there and were going to follow them. But again, seeing both halves of it, like, here's what I'm saying. Like, even watching both halves of it don't do you any good because then y'all that like watching me are just going to watch me. Y'all that like watching the other streamer are just going to watch the other streamer. Very few people are going to sit through both, I don't know what that would have been, like 45-minute videos to just see both halves of the same thing, right? They would just watch one half and get what they could from that. But even then, my perspective is either person's audience still hasn't learned anything significant about the other person. Like, that other person didn't bring anything significant to the presentation for that opposing audience. That's my concern. It's like, anytime I do something with another creator, like when I went to work with the professor, right? One of the things we did is we talked back and forth about subjects we'd want to cover and things where I could bring expertise. Because otherwise, I'm just there freeloading, getting the rub off of his viewership or whatever if I'm there, right? But if I come in and I can bring a perspective and something different that his viewers wouldn't necessarily get, you know, especially when we were talking about like COVID and how it's affecting retailers, and I know a bunch of retailers because I used to do that and I'm on different committees, that was a good conversation we had, right? Because I had a perspective other people he was going to have on didn't have. So now my expertise pays off, and now people go like, oh, this dude knows what he's talking about. Like, I might want to follow him on socials and stuff because he has some good info. Whereas if we just got on and played some Commander games, while that's fun, that doesn't necessarily do anything to enhance either of our products. You know what I mean? Let's see. The benefit would be to connect audiences. It would help viewers. It would be super. But does it really connect audiences? That's my question. Like, I don't know if it does. And that's what I'm saying. I honestly feel like the times I've done stuff, say with like CGB, where I went to his stream and we did like a deck building stream and we did deck doctoring and stuff, and I was able to bring on a perspective to help like recommend card choices and different things, that did more as a positive to endear me to his audience than had we just been playing a game. You know, like, that's the way I'm looking at it. But I mean, if y'all just want to see people play, then like, yeah, that's good enough, I guess. If that's a value, that's good enough in and of itself. I'm not telling you you're wrong for feeling like that. Like, that's real. If you just like watching people play. But like, my personal perspective is when I've watched other people play each other, I've kind of been like, well, okay. But that was just like watching regular content. I just happen to know the person on the other side, right? Like, it didn't feel different or additive. And again, I didn't get anything out of that other person really. So I think if they already are big, like, when Day 9 and Kibler do a thing, it's like, well, they're just two big creators sharing a video, being funny, and then they're just playing. They have a theme for the day, and they just build decks to play against each other, right? And that's the whole gimmick for what they do. And that makes sense, right? But they're also two really big creators that everybody already knows. So, I don't know. I mean, would I ever do it? Maybe. I mean, people have tried doing events for a while. I think Merchant tried to do some where they put people together. He doesn't do Magic content anymore. But back in like 2020 and 2021, I think he tried doing some stuff. And it's honestly, for the creators, it's a bit of a hassle to wrangle that many creators together, even on the same day, to clear that much time, especially with people being in different time zones and stuff. And again, like I said, and again, he put his videos out. You got to see a bunch of creators play each other, but it really didn't do much to boost anyone's profile because you watched some games with different creators, and then that was kind of it. There wasn't a lot of personality. Like, as much as you tried to interject personality in your games, and we had audio recorded and stuff, it's just hard because you're focusing on playing the game, right? And that's what people want to see. So it's a balancing. It's the same reason when you're doing Commander games, right? Like, but Commander, because it's so casual, and you can literally just pause games of Commander and just be goofy and whatever and tell stories, and like, there's a lot of things you can do without having to be regulated by the digital client, so to speak. Let's see what else we got here. We already went over the aggro question. Let's see. Swatzy says, I'm loving Aaena. Pretty new to Magic in general. Been thinking about playing paper Magic at a local shop, but I live in the middle of nowhere, and my shop is only like 4 dudes. You know what, though? That's a start, right? If you only have a few players, as long as I would say every time y'all get together, if you can, try to play at the local shop. Because there's some number of people that are going to be buying cards that also don't know where the players are, right? So if they see y'all and be like, oh, hey, I didn't know people come up and play. And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. We show up at these times on these days. You'd be surprised how quick you're able to grow a crowd over the course of like 4 months or so. But it's other people having to know that there are other people that do the thing. Because otherwise, they don't know where to look either. Y'all are all going to end up in the same boat. You'd be amazed how often you have people that are all thinking the same thing, but nobody knows how to get a hold of each other. Let's see. So Jen said, the value of me is feeling that streamers are a community rather than disparate channels with little in common personally. Paper Magic. Yeah, okay, cool. But that still doesn't have to be us playing each other to achieve that. See, all these things, other than just, I want to see streamers play, I can come up with a solution where the streamers can interact that's way more beneficial to everybody. Like 100%. And that's the only reason I've not pushed to do that. Because I feel like every instance I can think of to play somebody, I can think of something better to do. All right. Let's see. What do we got here? Hey, brother, loving the stream, but I got to go. Baby decided to swim in her chocolate custard. Oh, gosh. That sounds like a mess. Go get that. Think it could be beneficial in some ways. Say Dragon hosted as a streamer versus streamer show on his channel. Smaller channels could benefit greatly from the exposure. It actually doesn't work that way most of the time. And that's exactly what I'm saying, Alchemist. Like, you would think it would, but it really doesn't. Because my viewers are learning nothing about those people other than the fact they exist. Right? But if I get somebody like, let's say, I'm trying to think of like kind of an up-and-coming channel. Like Dr. Ruckus, right? The fact that he works on like Google crazy stuff or whatever, right? Bringing him on to talk about like how he's able to use Google to make better decks and how he thinks about stuff differently. Like, that would be a cool thing for people to learn about him and then be like, oh, maybe I should follow this guy's stuff. Whereas if you just saw him in a random tournament and you watched him for 15 minutes play a game, you'd be like, all right, that was cool. But you don't know anything about him. You know what I mean? Other than maybe as a commentator, I'm trying to give you like facts or whatever as fast as I can without interrupting the gameplay. But like, again, if you wanted to get that person extra exposure, showcasing them to be good at what they're good at and like share that knowledge would be way, way more powerful. Yeah, I've been on Tabletop Jocks. I've been on the Professor's channel. I've been on CGB Stream. I've done stuff with the Commander groups. I've done stuff with several people. I've been on a bunch of podcasts, right? Like, those things, Now the podcast and stuff did more to help like gain viewership for my podcast and whatever. But again, we were having real conversations that people could relate to and then go like, oh, maybe I should follow this guy's stuff or maybe I should listen to his podcast, right? And that makes sense. But the ones where I've just been playing, like say on Tabletop Jocks, I got almost nothing from that. I mean, a few people on Twitter, but that's about it. You know, like it just didn't change much. But I got a lot more from whenever I had those conversations on the professor's channel. And there was people going like, oh, I didn't know that. And I went on to this thing and I was able to answer some questions in the comments and stuff and whatever. And right. That did more than just playing on a thing on places that even have good followings. So, I mean, again, I'm not opposed to playing other creators. I just don't find it as fascinating or as helpful, you know, and even in my personal experience. It does have to be beneficial monetarily. I mean, I know that sounds rough, but like, even if it's not beneficial monetarily, it has to be a better use of the time. Because we can all do stuff for fun. Like, we've gotten together at conventions and played after hours or whatever. And that's fun. But at the end of the day, like, we're all, when you're a full-time creator, you're always doing something. Like today, I was packing up stuff because I had cards to mail out. Like, I was having conversations with Wizards for some upcoming projects. I'm trying to resolve some stuff with some potential sponsors. Like, literally, it's a full-time job, right? So if stuff isn't beneficial, even if it's not financially, like, you have to be able to see somewhat of the gain from it, or you can't justify doing it all the time. And don't get me wrong, I do take on things where it's just fun, right? I've been on some people's Commander stuff that I knew was not going to benefit me at all, but it's like, these people are really nice. You know, if they just need somebody to fill a thing, I can come be a fun personality for them. So sometimes you still do it. I'm not saying 100% of everything, but your mindset is going to start at, is this the best use of my time? You know? Actually, Croaky's Fight CGB got me to watch some of CGB stuff, and CGB mentioning you got me to watch your stuff. Sure, but that was more just like a recommendation of whatever. But CGB's and Croaky, sure. I could see that. And I'm not going to, and the thing too, when I say this, y'all, I'm not saying 100% absolute either direction, because nothing's 100% absolute, right? But I'm telling you, even from my own experiences and talking with other creators, it's more beneficial when you can show more personality. But here's also the reality. If you take, so let's say like the big channels, let's say Professor stuff over at Tolarian Community College, or you take, I don't know, MTG Goldfish or Game Nights, right? If they make a recommendation of somebody, that's already going to result in something anyway, whether we play cards or whether we get on and talk about a thing or whatever. It's just how amplified can that be is what I'm looking at. Yeah. What else do we got here? Justin says, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for taking my questions. Didn't mean to bogart your time. No, that's totally fine. I think it's a good topic. I think it's a thing a lot of people probably ask or consider. And I think there's a lot of creators that are okay playing each other. It's just, you know, the effort to do it, record it, justify it, whatever. And honestly, there's even been some stuff I know last year. There were some people like one James and a couple other people that did a couple of small series where they brought somebody on, played a deck, you know, against stuff or whatever, set things up. But I would be more inclined to say bring another creator on and maybe like backseat pilot the same deck. Like that would be more interesting to me than seeing us play each other, where you could say like, okay, what decisions would you make versus decisions I would make, right? And then you hear the two different, you know, we'll probably just get roped a lot like, or be under pressure from the rope. But I think that would be more interesting, right? To see like, oh, well, I would do this and this, planning to do this in 2 turns. Well, I would do this and this because I would think their opponent might have this card. And they're like, oh, that's a good point, you know, whatever. That to me feels like it would be more interesting than just watching those same 2 people play each other. Because now you're learning about the other player and how they think and their procedures and how it differs from the person you normally watch. And then you can decide and go like, oh, maybe I do want to watch this other person, you know? Yeah. Maybe the perspective is different from content creators' perspective. Quite possibly. Could always do a viewers donate to their maker of choice for charity. I mean, that's nice. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue it. Like, charity stuff is always nice. Let's see. I always wanted to see blue creature that is somewhat similar to Birds of Paradise, but blue. One blue play up, tap, island walk, tap, add a... that's blue's probably never going to get that. Like, honestly, you don't want that anyway. You don't want blue ramping and to be able to do, like, the better counters on turn 2. Like, that's not what you want. Coffee shops are also a good place to play. Sure, but coffee shops are not where people are buying the cards, right? Like, if you want to grow the community, you want to, one, encourage the store to keep having a place for you to play, but also be a place where the players are going to go, so they see you active. That's the thing. So if you can figure out the spot, in this case, the local game store, where people are purchasing all their stuff, and you can play in proximity there or in there, that's going to be your best chance to grow where a community doesn't exist yet. My son is trying to build on prototype creatures and the blink effects of Touch the Spirit Realm. Did we do that deck? I thought we did that deck. Like, I feel like we did. I have prototype. Yeah. We did do that. It was a Abzan deck. I feel like the Simpsons. Like, Simpsons did it. But yeah, here's the deck list. It's in the chat. That was also from a couple weeks ago. Still fairly new. Oh, no, chat's way back. That's fine. Like, YouTube has a slight bit of a delay by like 20 seconds or something anyway. So it's not a huge deal. Let's see. Used to run a channel on fighting games and OMG the pain. I can't imagine running a channel with viewership for more than 500. Oh, yeah, it's totally a pain. Like, I used to, and that's the other thing. I used to organize big tournaments. I was one of the big regional organizers for Upper Deck for like Yu-Gi-Oh! And stuff. You know, I've run things as big as Shonen Jumps. So, like, I know how hard it is to organize events for sure. And that's why I say, like, even just wrangling 20 people or say 30 people to do a stream with just creators and like a single elimination tournament or whatever, it's still a lot of work. Like, honestly, I can tell you even recently doing stuff with Degenerate Gaming, there were some things where streamers were, and I'm not going to call out any names because I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but streamers were incentivized to sign up because they either got to play for free or there was some other stuff involved. And a bunch of them signed up and then just no-showed. So you couldn't even promote that they were going to be part of the thing because you didn't even know who was going to show up or not. And good thing they didn't, because people might have been mad that, oh, I'm going to play in this tournament and my favorite person's going to play or whatever, right? So that's the other issue, because a lot of people also aren't reliable. Agree with you. I began watching more streamers through the autoplay feature on YouTube than big streamer versus big streamer. Yeah, I don't. And again, it's a personal preference. Some people really do like just watching people play the game, right? Whatever game it is they play. And that's valid, right? That is a thing. If people just enjoy that, cool. But I think as we've seen, the people that tend to show more personality tend to have more connection with their audience and tend to do better when they appear somewhere else. All right. I think we caught up to chat finally. All right. Protector of Olenbach with prototype creatures should be good. That's not bad. I think I have Olenbach in a Boros deck that might be making an appearance soon, actually. But yeah, I'm always working on a bunch of different lists at one time. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. If you have a deck idea or a deck list that you want to have looked at, wherever you're hosting it, you can post the link in chat. Starting now, I will take them in the order that they appear as best I can. Try to scroll back through because I'm sure some are going to skip ahead. And we will try to go over the deck list as we can. If you post your deck list with a super chat, as low as 99 cents, you will be prioritized to the front of the line, assuming I get done with the one I have on screen. And we'll just see how many we can get through in the next, I don't know, let's call it 30, 45 minutes or so. So if people have deck lists they want to get looked at, or you have deck ideas or suggestions, and if there's none, then as a community, we can just work on building a deck or go through a deck idea. We did that last time, and it was kind of fun. So either way, if y'all have questions, have deck lists, let's see them. If not, I'll give you a couple seconds, and then we'll just see we'll take random ideas for cards to build around, possibly. By the way, I need to get me a sponsorship from like a smoothie place. I realize I really like those. I've been going through a bunch. Also, while y'all are doing that and posting deck list links, what snacks do y'all like to have when you're on the computer or gaming? Because I realize, like, I go through a lot of gummy bears. I eat a lot of like sunflower seeds and pistachios. Like, and like I said, when I'm out and about, if I'm running errands, I like to stop and get a smoothie for real. Like I go through a lot of those. Like honestly, I felt bad when last time I went to the doctor and they were like, "Well, what do you have for snacks?" Where I was like, "Honestly, I probably eat like a ton of gummy bears a year." And they were like, "Wow, I'm surprised your health isn't destroyed." But like I was in perfect health, so I don't know. Gummy bears that preserve my insides or something. Am I playing Pioneer? Looking to play Eternal formats? Currently, no. I have some decks I've built, but I haven't played any. Hell, I've been shuffled them up to play since pre-COVID, and any of the I played zero Pioneer games ever, though I do own a Pioneer deck now. But I've played zero Pioneer, and I've played a handful of Modern over the last 4 or 5 years. I've played probably equal amount of Legacy as I have Modern. Played no Vintage. I have decks for other formats, but currently not playing any of them. Not that I hate them or anything, just when I'm at home, my time's been dedicated to focusing on Standard, and I just haven't had the opportunity to go play like an RCQ or something where it matters for me to play those other formats. Doesn't have to be a full list. Can I just put a couple of cards and focus in a super chat? Sure. Yeah, we can do that. What are your thoughts on Savior of Oldenbach? I've been wanting to run it, but scared to with the wild cards. It's a fine card, but it kind of just has to be part of another strategy. Like I said, I have a deck you may see in a couple of days after I clean it up with Boros stuff, and it's in there and it's okay. I don't know if it's like exceptional, but it's kind of my perspective on the card in general. Like it's okay, it can be useful, but if you have other ideas for that slot, there may be other things for the deck you want in that slot 90% of the time. Jerky. Yeah, jerky's good too. I do go through a fair amount of jerky. I don't keep it at my desk. I normally keep that like in the kitchen, but yeah, I do go through a fair amount of jerky. And soda. I actually don't drink a lot of soda. If I have a soda, it's usually because it's like the only option available. Like if I go have like fast food or something, or if it's part of something else. Like if I get a mixed drink, or if I have like a root beer float or something like that. But generally, I drink almost no soda. Occasionally at home, I might have like a ginger ale. But yeah, otherwise, unless I'm mixing it with something, I just don't drink a lot of soda. Not even for health reasons. I just never really was one of those people that was a big soda drinker. But I do, if I have a choice, probably Dr. Pepper or Sprite when I do have a soda. Do Sereth Great Worm. I don't even know what that means. Those are like words that I don't even think really go together. Chips are bad for first-person gaming. That's fair. Though I have seen they had these things that were like knuckle chopsticks. So like you could game, and then when you went to grab a chip, you use your knuckle chopsticks or whatever. Those look like genius. Honestly, I was like, bruh, I need those. Maybe I'll add those to my wish list, and then people can buy those for me at some point. But they look really simple, but they were just like on your knuckles. They just operated like chopsticks, and it was such a cool idea. I don't mind coffee. Coffee's a good suggestion. I do coffee, but my problem is by the time I'm done with coffee, it looks like chocolate milk. You know, like it has creamer, sugar, who knows, honey, whatever, caramel in it. You know, yeah, I might as well just be drinking hot chocolate at that point. Isn't there a new card that allows you to tap an artifact for mana? Maybe? Tap artifact, add. Let's see. Tap artifact for mana. There's one that lets you tap legends for mana. I know that exists. I don't know of one that lets you just tap. Yeah, there's Relic of Legends that lets you tap a legend. I don't know of one that just lets you tap an artifact. Anything for budget builds? Two problems. Most of the time, budget builds are just going to be infinitely worse than regular builds. And budget builds aren't good for views unless your content's built around it. Like, I've done budget builds. I've done, like, the Aaena starter deck list. Like, I do those at, every big rotation just because I think it's good to help the community and put that out there. But, yeah, my stuff gets crushed for, like, a week after I post those every single time. Like, but the reality is, like, the budget list we all kind of know what they are that are already solid, right? You're going to play some form of Rakdos, you're going to play mono white something or mono red something. Technically, the mono blue list is actually fairly budget for the most part, outside of like Hottie Jins if you want to build that. But like we kind of already know the good decks that would fall into the budget category. I don't think there's really much to add to that, other than you just playing a worse version of a deck that already exists. What about Commander? I think Commander's fine. I'm on the Commander Advisory Group. I think it's good. What about it? I'm not familiar with the new competitive terms. What is an RCQ? It is a regional qualifier, or regional championship qualifier is what it is. So basically it's like an old PTQ. You go to your local store, wherever, you play, you win. You get to go to the big regional thing. You do well in that, you get to go to the Pro Tour. Man, do you miss paper Pro Tours? Those still exist, technically. I mean, we just had Worlds, which, you know, I guess technically that had some other aspects to it with Aaena and stuff. But yeah, those are probably still going to be around. You'll probably see some version of those still. They're not gone yet. Cheez-Its and coffee. I could see people being into both of those. I keep comparing it to Brutal Cathar. No, Brutal Cathar and Savior Olenbach are definitely completely different cards. Like, that's a mistake I think a lot of people fall into when new cards come out. A lot of people's first thought is to say, like, oh, this is the new X. And I always, like, try to... Not saying you did it with those two, but I see that a lot, and I always try to warn people to not think like that. Because any significant wording difference between the two cards, or difference in casting costs or whatever, kind of like the new, the veteran that puts a +1/+1 every combat, people are like, oh, this is the new Luminarch Aspirant. And it's like, no, those cards are very different, right? Like the three mana one actually gets you a replacement when your thing dies if you play on theme with soldiers. The other one comes out on turn 2 and just makes it way harder for your opponent to climb out of the hole if they fall behind, right? Those are very different cards, but they do one thing that's similar and people want to make that connection. So I always warn people, because I think you'll get down a road of deck building thinking about treating those cards the same when they are actually functionally different. I think Explorer is getting closer to Pioneer. Well, yeah, that's the idea. It'll eventually be Pioneer full on. People are going to enjoy Explorer more and more. Would you consider diversifying your channel? Maybe. I mean, my problem is I haven't seen decks that I find really fun yet, right? If I had, and you know, I'll occasionally do a search on Explorer and watch some other content and see what people are doing. But I haven't found anything, like the interactions aren't particularly exciting for me yet. And like Standard's still like these weird little puzzles I'm solving and stuff or whatever, and that's interesting to me, right? Not saying I wouldn't do Explorer, because I'm not opposed to it. I've even considered it. But every time I've looked, I've been like, well, I could build this deck. But like, I feel like it's decks we all know already. You know, I don't feel like I think the difference is I don't know if I'm adding anything for you or to the community by producing Explorer content. Because I feel like whatever I do is just going to be like, yeah, this is just a slightly different version of the thing that's already there, right? I'm not, like, it's going to be a lot more difficult to take a underplayed card in Explorer and do something with it, just because of the nature of the format. Like, the more and more cards you have available, the lower percentage chance that an off the beaten path card even has an opportunity, because the average card quality in a deck is so much higher. You know, and that's just natural. Like, there's no way to avoid that. So I don't know if I get to bring anything to the Explorer format. Like, if I had a bunch of people who are just like, hey, I really want to see you play Explorer or whatever, then cool, I'll just go make some decks and play Explorer. I don't know if I'm bringing anything to the table other than watching me play Explorer, but if y'all are down with it, then, you know, maybe that's what I do. Don't have a deck list yet, but I'm trying to build a Jun list around Hitotsugu Consumes All. Wipes the board of all the 1-drops and tokens, exiles all graveyard. I had it in a list, and it's meh. Like, I don't know if I would... I don't want to stifle your creativity, but I will say you're going to end up with the worse deck than almost anything else you would put together. Like, I had one deck list we played it in, like, 2 seasons ago. 3 seasons ago, maybe. And it was fine, but that's all I could say about it. It was nothing. I don't know if I could even search. Maybe did I have it in the title that it was Hitotsugu? And I was going to say, I could maybe give you a starting point. I don't know that I did, though. Oh, I did. No, that's a different deck. Yeah, I didn't put it in that one. Yeah, I don't know. I have actual Hitexugu in a deck, but not Hitexugu consumes all. I mean, I have it in a deck list, but it was maybe, I think it was like a Mardu list, and it played the red white spell flashback, like you give a creature lifelink, first strike, whatever, right? So you could get like the doubled up counters on it and try to win with it. And it was fun. It was kind of gimmicky, but like it wasn't great. And if your opponent doesn't have 1/1s really out, then like the card doesn't even do anything at one of the levels. Like if they don't care about their graveyard, that doesn't really do much. You know what I mean? So you're really hoping to just flip it and get it on the backside and then hope to get that through. And I think that's kind of part of the problem with it. Most of the other sagas you're going to play have a relevant thing at every step that you can build around, or that fits the mechanic or, the general scheme of what the deck does, whereas I don't know if Hitexugu Consumes All really does that. It's kind of the reason you don't see it right now, even in Rakdos lists and stuff. Like, it's just, I don't know if it has a really good home, personally. First time viewer, sorry if you just play Standard. No, you can ask all the questions you want. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I play Standard mostly on the channel, but I'm aware of all the other formats. Like I said, I've been around a little bit. Moonsnare Prototype is a card that lets you tap an artifact for mana. True. But you have to tap the Moonsnare and whatever. You like Almonds Salted. Almonds are good. I don't mind. That's a good one. Blue Diamond makes some good almonds. Man, I ain't gonna lie. They have one, I think they call it like Smokehouse, which has some like, I don't know, some smoky barbecue seasoning or whatever on it. Bro, like I'll eat like, I literally have to stop at half a container and then just put it away so I don't eat it all in one sitting. For real. For budget builds, Illuminator is a good way to go. Fair. Love your videos. Have my like. Keep on being awesome and fun. I try my best. I really do. Okay. I'm not really an insomniac. It's only like 8:30 local time here, so I'm on the West Coast. So like it's still early for me. But if this seems to be a good time for streaming, because a lot of y'all seem to be popping in here very active. I'm very surprised. So maybe we'll do this again. Let's see. It may be an enchantment because I seem to remember lets every artifact add mana. Lets every artifact add mana. Yeah, I don't know what it would be, honestly. I am so confused on what that card would be. Let's see. Enchantments? No, these make mana in some way, shape, or form, but yeah. I tried to just put enchantment because it would bring up any enchantments that were relevant, but those aren't it for sure. Can I post my deck list in here in chat? You can post a link to your deck list. Please do not post entire deck lists in the chat. If you have it hosted somewhere, there's tons of sites you can put it on. There's, hell, Aether Hub. You can put it on Goldfish. You can put it there's a bunch of places. Moxfield, whatever. But if you give me a link, we can do a link. But please do not post entire deck lists in the chat. One of my few decks that gives players a break from seeing Azorius and expecting counterspells. That's fair. Well, hello, West Coaster. No coaster here. I used to be from the central U.S., if you want to call it that, I guess. So I get it. Like this, I will say, the funny thing is, one of the things people don't talk about when you move. When we move time zones, especially from Central Time Zone to Pacific, it was very different. Like even on Sunday, because I'm a football fan, I had people that I was working with ask me like, "Hey, you want to go watch the game with us on Sunday?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And they're like, "Cool. Meet us there at like 9:30." And I'm like, "Bruh, who starts drinking at 9:30 in the morning?" But then I realized games don't start at noon out here. They start at 10 o'clock. So you get down to the bar, wherever you're hanging out, sports club or whatever, at like 9:30. The plus side, though, is the last game's done at like 7, 8 o'clock. So you still got all the evening to rest up, do whatever before work the next day, as opposed to the games being done at like 11, right? Or midnight if you're on the East Coast. So lots of stuff like that. Like, if you want to watch a live event, when you're used to them starting at 6 or 7, they start at like 4, right? Hell, there was just a local wrestling event that, though the national airtime was like at 6 or 7, like doors opened here at 4, for the thing to start at 5 or something, right? So just really, really different you got to get used to that, which is something I think is really funny. Let's see. Have you done a deck with Hero of the Dunes? I don't even know what that card does, which means I'm probably not going to enjoy this when I find it. Hero of the Dunes. Whoop, if I spell it right. Hero of the Dunes. Yeah, this isn't really one to build around. This is just a mediocre soldier. Like, this has the same problem we were talking about earlier. Like, could we play it? Sure. But for 5 mana, it's going to be worse than almost everything else we'd put into the deck. Like, you start talking about other Planeswalkers, El, Junji, hell, Liza. Like, every other card in those colors you're going to want to pay for 5 mana are all way better than this. Like, infinitely better than this. Like, that's the problem this card has. Like, I would venture to guess that, man, I don't know. I would say probably better than 90% of the time. Anything else you're going to play, any other quality card you're going to play at 4 and 5 mana is going to outperform this card. So, like, could we put it in a list if we wanted to just, like, squeeze, like, splash black into a soldier deck? Like, probably. But, like, is it really worth it for 5 mana to get a 3/2? You know, I don't. And it doesn't even pump all your creatures. It pumps all your smaller creatures. So if this is the highest thing in the deck, that would be fine. But, like, the question I would ask is, does this card being in another small creature / soldier deck do anything to help those decks that it's not capable of doing currently? Right? Because at that point, we're just playing a card for the sake of playing the card, and we already know it's going to underperform. If we add a card that's off the beaten path, and we say, like, well, you know, this now helps you get rid of Planeswalkers, or this does whatever, right? Some bonus thing, and then we start going like, maybe this is the card we want to have, right? And then we can find a home for it. Because it's kind of like Urg in the deck we played a couple days ago isn't the greatest card, but when we're also trying to get other stuff in the graveyard to help Titania, and we're trying to outlast some of these mono red decks or whatever, it's like, okay, now we have a reason for playing Urg and putting it into the deck. It has like a real purpose, right? And we got to see that. But there's a lot of deck lists. It's like, well, we could play Urg, but what it does doesn't really help the deck list all that much. I'm the same way with Sriracha almonds, but actually I can't stand the smokehouse one. You know, I get it though. Like Sriracha, I had a friend who literally had Sriracha in a spray bottle to put on food. Like, he was all about it. He would put it in this little spray. I don't know, but for me, Sriracha, it's all right. I think sometimes it can cover up the flavor of what I'm eating a little too much, and that turns me off on spicy stuff. I like there to be heat, but I like this taste like as much of the full flavor of my food as I can, and that's where Sriracha kind of like kills it for me. Pretty sure you're talking about Maria, who adds mana by tapping artifacts. Red-green creature from DMU. You're talking about the elf? This person? Tap and untap. Yeah, this only... Well, you can tap an untap non-token artifact, and it only produces green. So, that's not quite the same as just tapping an artifact. But I did consider trying to put this into a deck. I just couldn't find anything good to do with it, unfortunately. I mean, because the best way to make artifacts right now is to make Power Stones, but you can't tap Power Stones to get anything. Who's my favorite football team? You're a Bears fan. I feel for you. Mine's... Oh, you can't really see it. I was going to say it. Well, you can kind of see it. It's right there behind me. Right? There? Plus, if you saw any of my Christmas videos, or Christmas season videos, it wasn't a real secret. Let's see. Okay, just moved. Can't find the commander deck I want to ask about, but let me just throw more general questions out. Sure. Inspiring Sanctuary. 3 mana non-artifact spells you have improvise. A spell with improvise can tap artifacts to produce mana. Yes, that's all correct. It's worse for Hawaii. You're 5 hours different than the East Coast. Easier just to watch it record. Yeah, that I totally understand. Like, I'm always surprised when I find people that are fans, especially in like Europe, that are fans of American football or anything, you know, American basketball, the NBA, you know, whatever. And they're watching stuff, you know, either way late or way early because of the time change, depending on where they're at. And they're super fans. I mean, and you have to be dedicated for that long, You haven't followed blocks or read the release list closely, research, bought one-offs for meta reasons since Innistrad or Return to Ravnica, since it's just friends and such. What do I need to know to go to FNM? Pretty much nothing. Like just what their start time is, entry fee, maybe ask for prizes so you know what you're expecting. Other than that, just figure out the format, bring a deck for the format, and be friendly to people. There's really not a lot to know. Most of them are going to be 3 to 4 rounds for most FNMs I've ever attended. Some may do record prizes based on records. Some will do prizes based on standings. Like, it just matters. Just ask them those simple questions and you're good to go. Feeling like there's... Oh, I missed that. Feeling like there's an archetype here somewhere. Maybe not. Oh, until the next couple of sets. Sometimes that's the case. You get cards that are plants for future sets, right? Like, there's a mechanic we're going to get that's going to make a card pop off, right? But we don't know what it is until we see it. Sometimes other meet up and be not totally out of touch. Oh, you're talking about gathering for... Yeah. For 5 mana, you can get Wandering Emperor instead, and 1 mana to exile something else. That's fair. Must not be a standard legal card. I just did a basic but advanced search, but it isn't coming up in the current standard format. Oh yeah, that's fine. I mean, believe me, I've crisscrossed cards before. It's not that uncommon when we have whatever now, like 30,000 Magic cards. How do you feel about the Elish Norn hype for standard? Overrated, proper rated? I don't know. At some point, I'll probably, like always, preseason, I'll do my hot takes that people like to hear. But like, I don't know. I'm indifferent. It's fine. We've had mechanics like that before. They weren't insane. The card's probably good. It's a tough body to kill. It'll get some play. Okay, the Sriracha Blue Diamond Almond. Thanks for the super chat there, by the way. The Sriracha Blue Diamond Almonds don't even taste like Sriracha. Interesting. You like Sriracha, that's why you tried them, but they're flavor all their own. Oh, weird. See, I would have assumed, when I see Sriracha, I just like know the Sriracha flavor in my head. So I just go like, oh, obviously it's gonna taste like that. And so like, it's kind of funny that it doesn't. That's very, very interesting. I would not have guessed that. Let's see what else we got. I don't remember what it was about, but my brain fired that the treasure tokens from Bootlegger Stash would have been able to tap to add mana. Bootlegger Stash is another one of those cards that I think people it's a good example of how easy it is to overhype a card. Because even for a commander, people are like, this is going to be so powerful and every deck's going to play this and whatever. I think I've literally seen it at one table. Even at all the Command Fest I went to and everything else, Magic 30, I think I saw one person play it. Like, I tried playing it in Standard, and like, it's so much work to get to 6 mana. Then the next turn, tap all your stuff, and now you have all this treasure, and it's like, okay, well now what do we do with the treasure? So it's an interesting card. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's near the fear everybody had. I think it's very easy for us as players to start thinking of worst case scenario, right? Oh, this card's going to do this, and this card's going to be so bad, right? And a lot of times they're not. And more often than not, the other cards end up being more problematic are the ones most people don't get in the beginning. Like Fires of Invention, Oko, right? Like, those are cards that people went, oh, these seem like they could be powerful. And then those end up being the most busted ones. But the ones a lot of times people get super hype about end up being just okay a lot of the times, which I always find to be very funny. So I always tell people early in the season, if you notice, I give a lot of feedback like, a lot of my comments are like, if the format goes this way, this card could be good or bad, right? Or if this card stays popular, then this card could be something you want to pick up or whatever, that type of thing. And I do think those statements are true, but I think it's better and more accurate than just saying like, oh, this card's going to be worthless or this card's going to be great, because there's a lot of places where that card could be worthless, but if certain decks become popular in format, then card's going to be the savior, or vice versa, right? So I think we just have to have nuance when we talk about things. I think, unfortunately, really as a society, we've lost the ability to have some amount of subtlety and nuance in a lot of our comments and conversations. So everything has to be blown up and sensationalized or whatever. And it's easy to buy into it, right? Especially when you see somebody that you follow or like saying a thing, you're like, oh, well, if they believe it and I already thought it might be a thing, then, oh, it's obviously going to be a thing, right? So it's very easy to buy into that early on. Let's see. What else we got here? There's also Galazeth Prismari, which can tap artifacts to produce a mana of any color, but can only be used to pay for instants and sorceries. Correct, that is one. Brandon House says, Washington hype. Would love to meet up someday. I've tried to keep up and download your deck ideas, but I get behind and don't have the cards. Great channel. You know, that's the thing, Brandon. I actually don't expect people to build every deck I put up. I imagine that as a viewer, most of you are only going to build like maybe 1 out of 10 decks I put up on the season. Partly because, one, you just may not prefer that style, right? It may not be a certain color you like to play or whatever. There could be a lot of reasons. And then there's also budget reasons, right? If you play paper, you just may not have access to a lot of the cards. Or if you're in Arena, your account just may not have a bunch of things and you don't want to burn wild cards every 3 days building a new deck, right? So realistically, I expect most people are going to watch just to learn something, whether it's seeing how certain mechanics work or see a certain card in action that maybe they thought about but didn't want to spend the cards to build on or whatever. And then if they see the one that clicks for them or they like the gameplay or whatever, then they'll build that one. But yeah, I expect most people aren't going to build the majority of decks I put up. I expect each viewer at most probably builds, just guessing, like 3 of the decks I put up in a season. That'd probably be about it. Unless they just have infinite resources and they just want to keep trying all the decks I put up, which is fine too, but I think that's got to be less than 1% of all the viewership, for sure. How many opponent auto scoops do you see with turn 1? I'm assuming that's turn 1 Delver. Happened to me twice yesterday. I don't play Delver hardly. I think I've played Delver in 1 list since it's come out, or since it got reprinted. So yeah, I just, it's just not a thing for me. I couldn't give you a real number because it's just not a thing. I tend to not really enjoy Delver style decks all that much. I think the only other list I might have Delver in currently is an Iconoclast list. Maybe. Thanks for all you do and the great content. Brightens my day each day seeing your content on YouTube. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. And that's another thing. Like, I don't know how everybody interacts with myself. Don't get me wrong. I see like data and like when people watch or whatever, but it's always interesting, especially when I've gone to events and run into people and just see like how people engage with my content. Or, some people say, oh yeah, I listen to this on my lunch break every day or whatever. So it's cool having a daily video. And, that's pretty cool to know. Or some people that were like, one person on the last stream we had, I think he's about to go through chemo, and he's like, man, at least I'm going to have your videos to look forward to while I'm going through treatments. And I'm like, that's cool, though, to be able to have something for somebody. So it's always neat, because one of the things I don't think gets talked a lot about as a content creator is we produce a lot of stuff to nobody, right? I'm in my little studio here, and I'm talking to a camera and a microphone, and I'm editing stuff and talking to myself and listening to myself when I'm editing or whatever. And then it kind of just goes out into the world, and all we see is numbers. So it's kind of cool to know that people really do appreciate what you're doing. Bootleggers is fun when you have the blue enchantment that lets you cast for free, but once you get the blue enchantment, you're just win more. Yeah, basically. It's just a win better type situation. Stimulus package makes stash fun. That is at least interesting. And I think that's how we tried it initially. We had other stuff that made treasure, and then we were able to use that with the stimulus package. The problem, though, ends up being that Farewell exists. And that's kind of my problem with Farewell, that you can just choose all the options with no downside, really. Like, if it was at, like, choose 2, or at the very least just destroyed and didn't exile, I don't think the card would be nearly as problematic. I think it's just is the way it is because it can choose all the options and they all exile. And it's just like, bruh, really? So the fact that you can, if you're going to build mid-rangey stuff like that plays 4, 5, 6 mana things to build this Rube Goldberg machine, which is interesting to see and do, you're almost forced into playing black for some amount of discard, probably duress to make sure you can get the key card out of their hand, or play some amount of counter spells, right? Because otherwise you don't really have many options, because you're putting all your eggs in the basket of it's like, you got to go all in. You can't hold cards because they're all important to trying to do what you're trying to do. So it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing. Let's see. Any cool zombie builds? No, but I have a zombie list from a couple weeks ago if you want to check that out. But that's, I mean, it's probably like the most I could tell you. Like, I wouldn't say it's particularly cool. It's a zombie list, and it's fine. But I mean, I built it because I know people wanted to see a zombie deck, but that's really about it. Let's see. I will post it in the chat for you though, so you can have it. There you go. Zombie list. Let's see. Trying to build a deck of using Bootlegger Stash since no one's using it. How can you get it out the quickest? All right. So is that what we're wanting to do? We're talking about doing Bootlegger Stash? Is that what we're going to do since nobody had deck lists? Try to make as many decks as I can. I love to try all the things. That's cool if that's how you interact with it. It's just one of those things that I think people have thought that like that's the expectation from us as creators, but not really. Like we know that most people can't. But it's cool if you have the resources. Yeah, go for it. There's lots of fun stuff to try. Let's say you see in Historic, the new Elish Norn will revive Urian Blink. That might happen. I could see that. Travis says you're off to sleep. Just stopped by to say hello. Well, thanks for stopping in. Hey, bro, like your content and how you approach deck building. Have you considered an artifact, simic, aggro, or tempo deck? Man, we built a lot of artifact list already this season. I actually got away from doing that because I don't know, I built like 6, I think. It was a lot. Let's see. We had the Jeskai artifact. Yeah, we have a simic artifact list. I thought I did. Literally, this is becoming Simpsons, didn't it? Every time somebody's asked for something, we have a deck list. There you go. There's a link for it. I was like, we built so many. I'm like, I feel like I've done that. Turns out I did. It was like 3 weeks ago or whatever. But there you go. You have a lot of cards I can base a deck off of, but we'll use what I have. Fair enough. Let's see. Here's a question on not being able to get cards and politeness rules. How do people feel about unowned proxy and unranked games? That's all a personal preference. For me, this is what I've told people. And I've had people interpret, because I did a video speaking about proxies. I can share that too. I have a link for that. Because we did that video several months ago. Actually, it was a while ago. Is it a year ago already I did the proxy video? Not quite. It was March 22. So, a while ago though. But for me, and I think people missed this when I was talking about it, but there's a full video if you want full context. Proxies for me, I don't use them personally because the only place they would be relevant for me is Commander. And I don't play high-powered Commander, so they're not really necessary. Am I upset if somebody else uses them? Not really. Unless they're trying to proxy like half a deck. Then I'm just like, why did you even bother building it? Like, let's go through the cards you do have, or get a pre-con and we can just change like 15 cards or something, and you can just have a workable deck, right? Because to me, the only real justification I have in my games, because of the power levels that I play, are just, maybe it's an expensive card, but you already own it, but you don't want to tote that card around, which I understand. Or you're trying to build around a specific couple of cards, and you don't have them yet, and you want to at least put them in the deck. Like, cool, it's 3 to 5 cards, toss them in. I don't have a problem with it. For competitive stuff, obviously they're sanctioned, so you can't use them. If you're testing a bunch of decks in preparation for a tournament, I think that's fine because you're just trying to have them all available so you can at least go through the motions and practice or whatever. So, like, I think they serve a purpose. But when I see people that literally are trying to proxy, 50 cards in a Commander deck, something about it just puts me off. And I'm not saying you're wrong for doing it. This is a me thing, totally. But and don't get me wrong, I get not having money. Believe me, I grew up borderline destitute, like 100%, struggling to keep a place to stay, lived out of a motel, like all that stuff. So I get not having money to afford things. But at the same time, there are people who I think push too hard the opposite direction and don't understand that you do need the system, whether we like it or not, whether that be Wizards, your local store, online place you buy singles, whatever, to be paid, or eventually we don't get new Magic cards, or we don't get places to buy Magic cards or play Magic or whatever. So to just be like, I'm never going to buy a card, I'm just going to proxy everything, I think is also bad logic for a lot of people to hold. But as a function, I don't think they're the worst thing in the world. I just think some people try to abuse it and try to justify it in weird ways. But yeah, I have a whole video about it that I linked there. Let's see. YouTube and podcasts for 2 years and recently started sending you my free Prime. Well, thank you so very much. That means a lot, honestly. Because people ask, like, how important is that stuff? And it's actually really, really important, to be honest. And that's something, I guess, as creators, we don't talk enough about, to be honest. But when you're working for yourself, you have to take on a lot more expenses, right? Like if something breaks, I got to replace it, right? If my camera breaks or lights or microphone goes bad, whatever, like I'm rushing out to wherever I can to try to get a replacement or whatever, right? That eats up money. You have to pay for your own insurance, like that's a thing. You got to pay extra taxes, like that's a thing, right? So you're not making a ton. So every little bit really helps, especially for moving the content forward, right? Being able to get new equipment, being able to pay people to do artwork for you. Eventually, I would love to be able to pay an editor so I could, because honestly, here's the real talk, y'all. Like, the end of every month, I have like 10 or 15 video ideas that will never get made because I just don't have time. Like, I'm editing all my stuff, recording my stuff, doing a podcast, doing live streams, sometimes doing commentary for stuff, doing special projects for brand partners. There's just no time to get it all in, right? Because I'm doing it all myself. If I had editors and stuff or copywriters and everything, it'd be great, right? I could do that. So money coming in goes to eventually pay for that. Like I have a big project I want to start probably around April, May timeframe, maybe March, April, realistically, that I really want to do, but it's going to require me taking a risk, and I don't think I'm going to lose any money. But my money might just be flatlined for a while, right? So every little bit allows that to do those extra projects and bring extra people on and pay for other people on other things. And, even for my podcast, like early on in my podcast, like my co-host just had issues between like his internet and his microphone setups and whatever. I took a big chunk of the money we had and I just bought him a whole new setup. And our stuff sounds so much better now, right? But we were able to do that because we had people giving us money through Patreon or whatever for that, right? So people always wonder, like, where does it all go? It's like there's a lot of places it goes to sustain not just what's going on today, but for the future for a lot of people. And that may just be just putting some safe money back. So if you get sick, you still have money for that month, right? Because there's no pension or insurance plan or anything like that. You get sick, there's no content, you don't get paid, right? So yeah, I genuinely 100% appreciate every member on YouTube, every person who leaves a super chat, like all that. Like I appreciate all of it, for real. And that's one reason I love smaller creators, the tips and perspectives. Someday I want to start a channel and every little bit of info counts. Yeah, I tell people all the time. I even do consulting cheap for people, just so they get more of the information early. Let's see. Just got autoplayed here while playing Civ, and my ears perked up when I heard MTG keywords. I love small creators, though. Very glad to participate. Thanks for doing what you're doing. Well, that's cool. Hey, whatever got your attention, I'm glad it did. Not sure what... Okay. So, let's see. Have I made a Mishra Tamer of Makfawa deck? No. I think I have it in a Rakdos list that's coming up, but the card itself isn't really the centerpiece. It's kind of just in it. I don't think I have it. Like, I don't think that's, I mean, the ability is nice, but I don't know what I would build around with that ability. I think you just play it because it makes sense, and then all your stuff has ward that upsets your opponent. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of it. You build a decent deck that just supports it. Raymond Mika says, subscribed. I've only come across your channel like maybe the last 3 days. Well, thank you so much. Much appreciated. Perennial Behemoth in a Golgari. I don't even know what Perennial Behemoth is. Let's take a look. Oh, this guy. You play your lands from your graveyard. what benefit are we getting from playing the lands? I think that would be the question, right? We can come back to this. We'll put, as the business people say, we can put a pin in it. But I think that's the issue. If you're going to play a card like this, you have to think about, okay, why am I playing those cards out of the graveyard, right? Because you're putting a 5 mana investment into a 2/7, so you're not getting the best creature for 5 mana to fight with. So it's got to be a good reason or some trick that we're putting this into play to get those lands back. I have given WotC a lot of money over the years. I'll check out the video. Fair enough. Let's see. I don't know about Bootlegger Stash. Could see it in a Corvold commander deck to ramp him stupid. That's fair. Met you very briefly with DJ Longhair in Vegas. How's it? Oh, you're with him. Yeah, cool. Hey, Prime. How's it going? It's going good. Going good this evening. Can you use Llanowar Loam Speaker to attack with land and bring them back? I mean, you could, but what would be the purpose of just attacking a 3/3 in so it can die just to replay it? Like, that seems like I could just keep my 3/3 and keep my mana available for other spells. There you go, PowrDragn. I challenge you to build a ramp deck that gets Bootlegger Stash out early. See, that's the thing. It's never about the Bootlegger Stash. It's about what are you doing with the treasure afterwards. That's the trick. Like, what about the Behemoth and a Tawnos deck in Standard? What does Tawnos do? Tawnos says, whenever you cast a beast or a bird spell, you copy it. But why would these be in the same deck? Like, y'all are just naming cards, but like, what do they do together? Like, I mean, it has the word beast, but like, again, what do I, like, is this the beast I want to make a copy of? Like, if I put beast in, I could put better stuff to make copies of. I guarantee you. Well, not beast collar. That doesn't really count. I guess I have to put it in standard too, or else that'd be weird. Oh yeah, like Oddity, definitely would rather have this. I would even rather have Obstinate Baloth. Just give me a 4/4 for 4. That's better. This guy's actually not bad as a 4/3 for 3. It has trample. I would copy that. Like, so many of these things are better. Oh, randomly, Urg is a beast. Don't want to copy that, but... Use Perennial Behemoth with Blast Zone to keep hitting their board, since removal in green isn't great. I mean, sure. That's like a long way around. Like, get the Blast Zone out, spend some mana, put the counters, spin the counters, empty their board, replay the Blast Zone. Like, and the whole time you're spending your mana and hoping they don't kill your beast. Like, I'm not gonna say you can't do it, but that's a lot of work when you could just be like, I don't know, depopulate. You know what I mean? Like, if the whole goal is just to wreck their board, just be like, yeah, just at that much mana, you literally should just be playing farewell. Like, not even joking, right? Like, if you're going to, for as much as it would take to keep wiping people's boards, you literally could just farewell and save yourself the time and just play better cards. Right? Like, you're not getting a real benefit out of the Behemoth. And that's the thing, right? Any of these cards you want to talk about building around. The thing I always want to caution people about is feel free to build it, but always think about, one, is the deck still functional if you don't get that card or those 2 cards? Right? That's the first thing. Is the deck still functional if this card dies and doesn't get to do whatever we're hoping it does? The other is, if you're going to include 2 cards, make sure they work with other cards in the deck. Because too often I see people say, okay, I'm going to build this deck so I can play this card, and I'm playing full sets of both of those. And it's like, okay, great. But when you get that card without the other card, it just sucks. And it doesn't do anything with the other cards, right? So they have to be independently still useful, but really good together. Like, those are the things I'd really caution people on. And then, if you are playing it, what is it really doing that justifies it being in the list? Other than just, I want to play with this card. Which sometimes, that's fine. I've done it in my deck list. Like today, I think the deck list that went up, instead of playing Ao, we played Junji. And it worked out. Junji actually came in, his ability was useful. So, you know. But the fact of the matter is, it could be either one. You know, you just take your pick. Funny thing about Tawnos is he doesn't even have enough support to build around. Unless they have more birds and Beast and Phyrexia. Oh, there'll probably be more Beast and Phyrexia for sure. I don't even know how many birds there are, though, to be honest. I haven't even looked. Oh, I guess I just need to put bird, not plural. Are any of these any good? Not really. I mean, it's flying lifelink. We can draw cards. That one's okay, I guess. Ledger Shredder obviously is solid. This makes a bird. I don't think that really counts. This is a 2/1 for 2, but the kicker's red, so you probably would never kick it. Yeah, not a lot of great options. These are all pretty bad. Actually, Falco's good, but if you copy it, it's legendary, so that doesn't really do anything. Yeah, not great. Not great. Definitely need more stuff to copy there. Yeah, is the card just sitting in your hand? That's a real good question. It was an attempt at mono green ramp. Stopped soldiers in mono red just to blast on one. Yeah, I would say though, like, I wouldn't even play the behemoth. I would just play a quality mono green deck and then just go ahead and play the blast zone. Because even with mono green, you could blast zone for like 2, wipe out most of the soldier stuff, and still keep most of your things. That's kind of my point, right? Like, the behemoth isn't bringing anything to the table, especially once you start talking about 5 and 6 mana in mono green. It's like, well, you could just play the what is that guy? The big silverback? Is that what it is? Yeah, this guy. This guy's great. You just play that, and that's also going to be good against those decks who are about wiping out other creatures. It's a big 5/7. They can't do anything against that. And then you start gaining life, and then they just hate life, right? And then you have the Defiler, which at 6, or no, he's at 5 also. Like, so yeah, both of these are better than the Behemoth. If I were given a choice and playing mono green, either of those still does 90% of what you'd want to do against the creature decks. A dragon deck in standard would be dope. We already took care of that at the beginning of the season. I'm pretty sure we did that too. This has really been like a Simpsons Did It episode of this stream. This was back on November 17, so early in the season. But yes, the deck list already exists. Here you go. Have fun. Leave a like on it when you're finished. Is there a dragon deck in standard? I'm not sure if ever. Well, there you go. Yeah, I just posted it. Graveyard-centric decks feel most fun at the moment. Yeah, they actually are, to be honest. I think we did a weird thing. We both gave some things to encourage you to do graveyard decks, but they're like just bad enough that they can't be like top-tier dominant. But at the same time, we gave a lot of ways to deal with the graveyard, right? Because you're starting to see people already playing like Unlicensed Hearse. They're already playing Farewell. They're playing the Black Werewolf is a thing. You know, there's a couple of artifacts that get rid of stuff from the graveyard. So it's just like, you can, but it can be difficult. Just post the deck link to wherever you have the deck hosted. Also, why play Behemoth when you can play Soul of Windgrace? Also a good card. Yeah, Soul of Windgrace is just way better. I mean, you get a 5/4, which is already good body, comes with 3 quality abilities, and it just returns land anyway. Will you prefer best of 1 or best of 3 matches? For content purposes, I only ever play best of 1. For other stuff, personal stuff, tournaments, whatever, obviously you play best of 3. But for content purposes, it doesn't make sense for me to do best of 3. Best of 1, I can show you more matches against more stuff, a larger variety, more decks to pick from and editing. Just a better experience to do best of 1. And the truth is, the majority of people that play Aaena play best of 1. Look at iteration to copy explosive singularity. You can use Bootlegger Stash to get you there. One-shot combo. Explosive singularity and iteration. Iteration, the blue-red card to copy. Go back iteration, and then you're talking about the thing that does 10 damage. Is that it? Or do I have those confused? Oh, wait. Yeah, well, yeah, 10 damage. That's the one. I mean, you know, I'd be more inclined just to play this on its own. I don't even know if I'd want to copy it, honestly. Like, because the rest of the deck has to do something. If my opponent's still at 20 after all that happens, like, that's a rough stretch, right? But a 10 ball should get you really close to where you want to go anyway. I don't even know if I'd bother with the other reason, too, I wouldn't bother with the iteration is there may not even be that many quality spells to copy. You know what I mean? And that kind of comes back to the other question we had. Like, would we be playing iteration just to get the best part of, like, singularity to go off? Cool. But the reality is there's probably going to be a lot of situations where the iterations is going to be very mediocre, or it's just going to be a random excuse to spend a couple of mana to get, like, some menial effect that we don't necessarily need two of right then. Yeah, I think is the issue. The Goif deck's fun, just not good enough. Yeah, in some cases it may not be. I've built around Draftna and the ETB art. I definitely have not built Draftna. I don't even remember what the card... Well, it helps if I spell it right. Oh, this guy. I think I thought about this, but probably not. Like, the problem is I don't know if this does anything. As weird as that sounds. I think that was my issue. Because, like, am I going to want... Like, first off, what artifacts come into play that I want to return to my hand to reuse? That was my first issue, right? And I couldn't think of a lot of really good ones. Then the other thing was, okay, how many are good enough that I want 2 copies of or more? Usually if you're playing 1, that's good enough on a lot of them. But then I would also have to have 3 mana available in addition to the cost of what I played so I can get a copy of it. The card itself is actually fairly efficient. It's a 2 mana 2/1, so it wasn't bad, but I didn't really feel like it was bringing a whole lot to the table. So, like, could we build a deck with it? Yeah, but is it really doing anything? I don't know. Because it's such a bad card, so if you have to play it, so you might as well go in a combo deck. Sure, but what are we comboing? Because again, does the deck do anything if you don't get this card? Right? That's again the whole thing we've been talking about building around cards. The deck still has to do something if you don't get that card. I can't think of any situation that I want to play. Any cards I want to play with this are probably not great on their own. All I can think of is the simian counters. Fair. Ever made a blink deck with... Why? Somebody asked that earlier. Like, yes, we have. That was like a little over a week ago, I think. Maybe 2 weeks ago. Yeah. But that's definitely a thing. Multiple people have built this deck, actually. I've seen other creators with a version of it, too. But yeah, there you go. There's a link. Let's see. Might and Weakstone. Good to pick back up. Also play 3 copies of Mightstone, Weakstone. Well, that card's just good anyway. Yeah, but that's the thing with Portal, Phyrexian, and Draftna. Like, why do we even need to bounce it, though? Like, you've wiped out their stuff. Which, one, that's also a ton of mana. But, like, you just start getting their stuff into play. Like, that's all I'm saying. Just, like, could we? Yes, but the things we want to bounce, they're already good on their own. Like, it doesn't even make a big difference. All right, so let's do this. Let's wipe the slate clean. We didn't have... And by the way, thanks for those super chats. I really appreciate it. But we didn't have anybody really post any deck lists. So... Well, I still got a few. I'm already over what I was expecting to stream for, but hey, whatever. We're having a good time. So, let's look at Bootlegger Stash. Well, yeah, even then, that's more mana to copy it, though. That's all I'm saying. Like, having something plus 3 mana when it's already expensive, the good stuff you want to copy, that's kind of the problem. Alright, so Bootlegger Stash. There's a lot of ways we can get mana. So I don't think that's the issue. I think if you want to go, let's say, Loam Speaker, because that gets us mana, we could probably... Okay, here's another thing I think about, too. When you're going to play 2 mana creatures, depending on what the deck looks like, it's probably going to be Loam Speaker and like the Taxidermist or something. But if we are going to go that route, then you kind of have to start thinking about what can you play with 4 mana, right? Because if we hit one of our 2 mana things on turn 2 and it lives, what can we do on for 4 mana to take advantage of our mana every turn? And then maybe even get closer to setting up a Bootlegger stash. Is there an artifact creature or any creature that gets +1 counters when artifacts enter battlefield? Yes, but once a turn. It's the worm. It's this guy. Boop. That dude. Is there anything else that says artifact enter? Those all are artifacts themselves when they enter or do something to an artifact. Let's just look at green. Let's assume green, red. Maybe that's where we're at the moment. There's Dragon Speaker, Dragon Spark Reactor. Right? That's a thing. Like, if we bootlegger stashed and, I don't know, can get like 7, that's pretty cool. I don't know if it really, like, I don't know the likelihood of it happening, but it seems cool. Right? Like, I'm into it. So, like, maybe you, like, get a speaker out early, then after you bootlegger stash, the next turn we just tap all of our lands, get 5 or 6 treasure, and then we can just use the treasure we got to blow this up for maybe 6 or 7. Like, no, it's not a 1-turn kill, but over 2 turns you could probably do it. So like it's an option. It's an option. Like I'm not opposed to it. We'll put it, but here's the problem though. Again, if we're gonna play the bootlegger or the Dragon Spark Reactor, then we have to start thinking about, are there other quality artifacts we can play in the meantime in the deck list? You know what I mean? Because otherwise, it's like, well, now, again, we have the reactor that only works with the bootlegger stash. Because the reactor only really works if, like, at least a third to half of your deck is artifacts. Otherwise, you have this thing sitting there with, like, 1 counter forever and doesn't ever really do anything or kill anything. So then it might as well have just been any other card that's going to do better for you. So I'm parking it here while we're building, but it is possible we end up not playing Dragon Spark Reactor. While I do like the idea of it, I'd have to come back to the idea of how many artifacts can we play in the list to make it worthwhile, right? Because that's the thing. Other mana creature. I mean, okay, so this starts entering the question as well. Reckless Fireweaver. I mean, maybe? Wait, that's not even standard legal, is it? Nope. There's Reckless Stormseeker. Fireweaver's the one that, like, an artifact comes into play, you deal 1 damage to something, right? Yeah, I don't think that's standard legal anymore. Would be cool, but I don't think it is. Maria makes use of Dragon Spark Reactor. Maria makes use of Dragon Spark as mana. I mean, yeah, but you know, sort of what I feel like. Like it's but like it does ish. But is that a good enough reason? Because literally anything at that point, like any artifact, could be mana. Right? So, I mean, it's tough. So I'm trying to think like what artifacts. Because again, if we go too far into being just an artifact deck, then we could just be anything else. You know what I mean? Like we've already done different Gruul artifact based decks. Like that could already be a thing. Wow. Okay. Here's an idea. First off, let me just park another mana creature in here till later, till I figure out what we're doing. Let's go with the Taxidermist. Oh no, I was gonna say my computer froze up for a second. All right, some number of Facebreaker. The problem is Facebreaker's no good if you don't have stuff to attack with. So now we're back to the other thing. Like, do we go Wormlet heavy? We could probably play, what is it, the Hound? That has first strike? Yeah, that thing. I mean, it's an artifact. Gala Greeters. Somebody mentioned that earlier. I think that's reasonable. Gosh, what else are we doing here mana-wise? Devastator, maybe. Maybe. I like Devastator. Here's the problem though. And here's the issue I was just talking about earlier, right? We're going to reach a point where this might as well just be the red-green artifact list we played earlier in the season. You know what I mean? Like, just being real about it. Like, it's not going to be significantly different once we get to putting all the other stuff in. Other than, like, hey, we shoehorned in Bootlegger stash. Right? Again, like, don't hate Mirror Breaker. But at some point, you're just going to be a worse version of regular Gruul, right? And Mirror Breaker doesn't really contribute to this. Don't get me wrong. It's a good card and it lets us dig for cards. Like, the card's good. Probably the best card that's been in Standard in a long time. Right? But, I mean, it doesn't really... I mean, it's just like we're just naming good cards. But at that point, again, are we not better off just making the other deck? Right? And I don't know the answer. Maybe there's still room here. We got a lot of room to put cards in, but we're already at 31 cards. Assume you're going to play, like, I don't know, 24, probably 25-ish. Wait, with the mana creatures, maybe get away with 24. So you're at 55. You only have room for 5 cards at this point. Like, this is the deck building dilemma, right? When you start playing all these other goofy things, you start playing other cards to try to justify them, you run out of room really quickly. Because honestly, if I were to make a decision here and say anything, I would probably even want stuff like the, what is it called? These guys. The Arbalest Engineers, just to be able to make the Power Stones, to be able to play the Bootlegger stash easier. You know, but again, is this really helping us out? Because if we don't get Bootlegger stash, do we care about the other part of it? Yoshin Dissident, again, we already have that deck list. Like, at that point, we don't even need to be looking at Dragonspark Reactor, really. Maybe we could keep it, but at that point, we don't need Bootlegger stash. We don't need a bunch of stuff at that point. Like, we already have the deck that plays those. Like, we already have it. Like, but, oh, no, don't get me wrong. Arbalest, does it do multiple things? Yes, but after putting it in a couple of deck lists, the best part about it is the Power Stone. If you're not using the Power Stone, it's worse than almost all the other things you want to play at 3 mana. Like, it's worse than a Facebreaker. It's worse than a Reckless Stormseeker. It's like, we can probably go down the list. Like, there's so many other cards I'd rather have other than this. But if enough situations where I get the Power Stone are good, then yeah, I definitely want the other things. Play some Freebird, man. The new art crit that adds mana equal to its power. Adds mana equal to its power. Oh, I guess if I hit the right key, there we go. Nope, it still didn't do it for me. Dang it. There we go. All right. I'm assuming it's one of the green, probably prototype guys. Adds mana equal... Well, I can just put that. Add mana power. Wait, not Gwenna. Oh, because I think it adds green equal to power. Right? Is that what it is? Yeah, it's this guy. Yeah, this isn't great either. I mean, you're going to prototype it for 3 to tap for 1. You get a 1/3. I mean, if I'm paying 6 for a 3/6, do we care to tap for 3 mana on, like, turn 7? Even if I ramp into this on turn 4, I'm only that's tough. Nate with the $5 super chat says, enjoying the stream. Here's a list I've been playing. Hope you enjoy it. I don't see a list attached, but I would gladly take a look at it. But yeah, I don't see it, actually. But if you post it in the chat, I'll take a look at the link. Yeah. Yeah, I guess if we had something to put counters on this, it would help. But, I mean, we have stuff that puts counters on themselves, but nothing that puts counters on it, I think would be the issue. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of, like, other artifacts that make it worth playing some of this other stuff and the bootlegger stash. Yeah, I mean, I think... God, we just need something else to do with the treasure. that's the problem. Yeah, Aaena maybe. That's a reasonable option. Beast Caller can put counters on it. Sure. But that's too gimmicky. At that point, we'd just be playing Gruul aggro and just swap some cards out. Like, really enjoyed your Demir video. I'm glad you liked it, Luke. Thanks. Yeah, Aaena is always a good card. But I wouldn't play the Clear Cutter just because I'm playing Aaena. I would just play Aaena because it's a good card with everything else in the deck. I think that's the issue there. Yeah, I'm probably not even considering Clear Cutter. It's worse in the majority of situations that we'd want, right? Like, if we get it early for 3, we're still only tapping for 1, but I could just play a 2-mana thing that taps for 1. So I could have more mana sooner, more often. Or, if we are able to ramp up to 6, do we care to have 9 mana on, like, turn 6, maybe? You know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot we'd do with that with the extra mana anyway. But Beast Colors have been in the game for a long time. Well, that's true. It would have to die as well. Yeah, no, here's the thing. I have no problem putting counters on it. I just don't think I want to because the card's just inferior to everything else. Like, literally, anything else we could play in that spot is just going to win more games with or without counters on it. You know what I mean? Well, the problem is, we were already thinking about, well, if we get all the mana, we could play the explosive whatever, right? And just burn the opponent with all the mana we get from the bootlegger stash. But we may not even get to the mana to be able to do it. It's tagged below your super chat. Weird. When I saw the super chat, it did not show anything tagged. You sent it right below the super chat. Yeah, it's literally not showing anything. I literally see the super chat text. I see the super chat dollar amount. I see nothing else. I don't know where it would have been. If you just want to repost it just straight into the chat, I'll take it. But yeah, for whatever reason, it's not showing for me there or on mobile because I'm like, I can see the mobile stuff come up and it didn't show it there either. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I just don't know if we can do anything with the bootlegger stash. Like, I almost feel like if we're going to go gamble on bootlegger stash, then we just need to make it about the bootlegger stash. And you know, that's it. I mean, it's really not much more to that. Like, if we're going to do it, then maybe it's just got to be about that. And we just got to have something cool to do. Pyre Sledge Arsonist will get rid of the treasure and ping. I don't even know what that card is. Pyre Sledge Arsonist. Pay 1, tap it. It deals X damage to any target where X is the number of permanents you've sacrificed this turn. I mean, it does stuff. I mean, like, that's not the worst thing. I mean, it's not a great card. Yeah, it's 3 mana 2/2. Not great. Doesn't do a lot on its own. But it can also kill creatures because it is any target. And we could use it alongside stuff like Professional Facebreaker and stuff. So it's not like the worst thing. Well, of course, Richard, that's the whole point. We know bootleggers is clunky. That's the whole exercise. like that's the point. Like we know it's clunky. We're not questioning that at all. Battery Bearer. Yeah, y'all are naming cards that literally I don't even think I ever remotely consider when deck building. Battery Bearer. Oh no, definitely not this. Not that. I've already looked at this for multiple deck lists. This is not making the cut. Like, it's just not. Like, you can only use the mana for artifact spells. Like Literally, it would just be for bootlegger stash. Maybe that, like this. And we'd have to add a color. Like this, I just got to no sir that. It is not going to happen. Now, Jenny Faye is a real option. Jenny Faye is a real option, especially if we're already going to be playing other stuff that makes tokens or whatever. That does become real. And I would be more likely to consider that. And it does give you the option of just like having a big combo, right? Where like you have Jenny Faye out, you play bootlegger stash. If they live, that's a lot of ifs. You just tap your lands and make a bunch of 2/2 haste things or something, right? Yeah, I don't know about Karn necessarily, but I do think we go ahead and play Stimulus Package. I think that's a real option. It's just kind of like, where does everything else fit in, I think is the issue. Because I don't hate any of the cards currently in the list. And there already is kind of like a pseudo built-in combo here, where you've got Jenny Faye, Gala Greeters, Stimulus Package, where like your creature comes into play, you can make a token, the token can trigger the Jenny Faye makes a body. You know, like you can do that whole song and dance. Or you can like sacrifice a token during their end step, make the 1/1. The 1/1 comes in, you make a treasure, let the treasure hit, so you can do the whole thing again, so you can keep having a stream of creatures. Like, that's all stuff you can do. What about the train that uses treasure? Maybe. I've tried that in a list before, and it didn't work out. I think I know what you're talking about. It's the 4 mana one, I think. It's a vehicle. Yeah, it's this thing. It's a 6/6 sacrifice treasure. Becomes an artifact till in the turn. I think my issue with this was that it didn't have any evasive abilities. So it just got chump blocked a lot. However, I will say, if we are worried about depopulates and stuff, it's a pretty solid body to have left behind when you can just sack a treasure and be able to attack. White at all or just splashing? You don't need white. You can cast Jenny Faye with green and red. You can cast green, 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 or red, green, green, and still cast Jenny Faye. You don't need white mana, actually. She has split mana on 2 of them. So we got that covered. Like, Jenny Faye's all good. We'll say I've seen like 10 cards so far I've never heard of. That's fair. It is a 4-drop. Like, we know that. Like, that would be the downside to the card for sure. Awaken the Woods with Valet could be pretty strong. That's interesting. I don't hate that. The thing is, though, like, here's the thing, though. If we were going to do that and we already have a way to make all the treasures, we're better off playing Stimulus Package. Because we're going to get the 1/1s anyway. So I'd rather do that, and that's more defensible, I would say. So you're not all in. Because, like, the thing is, if we spend all our mana to make all the tokens, then a board wipe happens, you just lost everything, right? Whereas you can just keep replenishing treasure, and then during their end step, you can just sack a bunch of stuff to the Stimulus Package, make some 1/1s, and attack with them the next turn, right? So you get more flexibility in how you use your cards by doing it this way. So I think I'd rather go Stimulus Package over playing the Awaken the Woods. Because we don't need a lot of mana. That's the thing. Realistically, the only thing we need mana for is Bootlegger stash. But once we get the stash, we have all the mana we want, right? And we don't even really want the mana. We just want the treasure. If that makes sense, right? Like, we want the treasure maybe to power a vehicle. We don't know yet. But to make tokens with Jenny Faye or make bodies with Stimulus Package, right? Like, that's what we really want. Jewel Thief worth playing for Facebreaker. Yeah, I think Jewel Thief's viable. I think that's worth considering. Oops, not that guy. I don't want a Horde Holler. But yeah, while we brought that up, let's put up Jewel Thief. I just want to put a copy there as a marker for discussion later. Glittermonger. Man, y'all are going deep in the vault. No, absolutely not playing this. This, like those old commercials, the bitter beer face. That's what I'm doing. I'm not, no. 4 mana 1/4s are not, Yeah, doo-doo is a good word. This is not it. this is whenever we use the phrase "that's not it," this not it, right? I would rather play another stimulus package, another Fable, another. I would rather just max out on something else than play that. Because again, while it does tap and make a treasure, that's kind of all it does. It's a 1/4, so it's not going to kill hardly anything it's going to block. It's not aggressive enough for us to attack with. We're getting no real value out of it other than just we get to make a treasure. But if we're going to do that, there's a bunch of other ways to make treasure, right? I mean, like, this is, in combination with all of our other cards, just worse than Stimulus Package, right? Because even if our goal is to just make a treasure, it's like, well, this comes into play, makes 2 treasures, and we can immediately start doing stuff with it. Kessig Naturalist. Is that the werewolf? Yeah, what does that do for us? Yeah, we definitely don't want this. Like, we'd be better off just playing one of the things that already taps and makes mana. Also, randomly, this thing counts as a treasure. I don't know if anybody's aware of that. It's actually a treasure dog creature type. Add some interaction? Our interaction is Dragon Spark Reactor. This deck is not going to have a lot of interaction. There's not room for a lot. So you kind of just get what you get. That's where we are. Yeah, so Explosive Singularity has to go. I don't think that can make the cut. I think, as much as I would like to have some cool options, I think Capenna Express has to go. I don't know if we can get away keeping Goldhound. I don't think Goldhound's terrible. I don't know if it needs to be a full set of 4. Dragon Spark Reactor, I'm mostly okay with. Assuming we end up with enough things that make treasure, I don't think I would be mad about it. Goldhound also somewhat helps out with Professional Facebreaker, especially if you attack with multiple things, because when you hit first strike first, you get a treasure, then the next thing would get a treasure, so that does matter. Jetmir's Fixer. Jetmir's Fixer. Get a +1/+1 until the turn. If any mana from treasure is spent, actively put a +1/+1 cat. No. No. Because it doesn't do anything. Like, we spend a bunch of mana, we get, I don't know, we spend 6 mana, we get a 5/5. I mean, we can just spend mana and get a 5/5. Like, this is worse as a 2/2 than all the other stuff we're going to play. We're not going to want to spend the mana when we're not spending treasure on it. Yeah. Taxidermist is already in the list, but it's probably going to get reduced down to just like 1 or 2 copies. Sticky Fingers isn't bad. I don't mind that. No, I thought, like, the thing about Big Score is while it's neat, we're still kind of an aggro deck, right? So Big Score doesn't really do anything because, again, remember, we don't need to ramp all that much, right? We're really still playing like a pseudo-efficient aggro deck that just has a big finish. So once we get a Bootlegger stash, we're kind of already where we need to be. Which, speaking of, let me go ahead and just put some placeholder lands in here. Carplusion Forest. Yep, I didn't spell that right at all. All right, let's do that for 4 of those. Whatever that thing is. I forget the names of all these. Rockfall Vale. That's the one we're looking for. And then I guess we'll play a Sekinzen. Though Sekinzen Smelter might be an option worth considering in this list. Play one of those. Play one Beseiju. And then I guess the rest are just like forest and swamps. I mean, forest and mountains. 23 to 18 is... What do I got left? 13 slots, so we go 7 and 6, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, what? Why are these all grayed out? What the hell? Oh, because I have it set for things I don't own, of course. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8. Nah, I just want to go 7 for now. And then we go mountain for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so we have lands in there. Lands are there. And the deck is kind of filled up. So now we're at the point where if we add anything, we have to remove things. which, you know, that's the way deck building works. Reclusive Taxidermist. We already talked about that. No big score, just or fail the boulder. If that's a dude that just doubles the power of something, we definitely don't want that. River Tears Requisitioner, not bad choice. I don't know if it's necessarily better than anything else we're playing, but that's not a bad choice. Glittering Stockpile, that's the one where you just get to save treasure on it. I think the problem is it just takes too long to build up. I mean, you can tap it for a red. It also counts as a treasure. Add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of stash counters. I think the problem is it just takes too long to get anything out of it. I don't think it's bad. At least not for this build. I think in general it's a bad card, but for this build I don't think it's bad. I think it's just going to take a long time to power up. It's cool that it also counts as a treasure though by itself, so that's kind of sweet. But I don't think it's good enough compared to the other cards. Power Stone Land? I don't know what that would be. Sarenth Great Worm. Oh, yeah. Like, this is kind of neat, but not really. I mean, making a Power Stone cool, but, like, it's a 7/6 trample. It's fine, but, like, I'd rather just play some dragons or something. Like, at that point, I really would just play the Shivan whatever and spend our mana to make a big flyer. Oh, I don't think I'm one of the top creators. I mean, I'm probably one of the most consistent. I'm sure there's others that are better than me. But thanks for the compliment. You know, I think Jetmir's worth considering if we go ham on, like, stimulus packages and stuff. All right, let me go with Dig Site and see what y'all are talking about. Takasha's Dig Sites. Why do I not own any of those? I feel like that card exists. I feel like I have heard that name and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's not coming up, whatever it is. So maybe it's not a standard legal card. I don't know. Tags in. I don't know what that is. I don't even know what Hall of Tags in. I would just type in the name y'all typed in the chat. I for real don't. That's a card I don't know. I don't even think I've even heard of it. So I'm going to assume that card's not real either. Or at least not in terms of standard. Because I don't know. Like I said, though, I do think Jetmir could be real if we wanted to push hard on stimulus packages, whatever. The problem is this is becoming less and less important to have bootlegger stash, which is what I was afraid of when we started building. I'm trying to think, like, could we get by with less teething wormlets? Maybe, maybe not. Do we need a full set of gold hounds? It's a gold land tags in. I don't know. I put tags in. Nothing comes up. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't. Is you sure it's a standard card? Because, yeah, I have nothing else highlighted. I have, like, not collected and nothing came up. Maybe I have to hit land specifically? Colorless stuff? Oh, there it is. No, we probably don't want this, though. I don't have any color. Create a tap Power Stone. Because, again, we don't have that many artifacts. Like, making a Power Stone doesn't do much. I mean, unless we're just trying to, like, trigger Jenny Faye. But, like, yeah, that's probably not what we want. Okay, same as the Excite. Yeah, surveilling for one doesn't... I mean, it's nice, but it doesn't really do much for us. I'd rather just have more treasure and use Facebreaker. Yeah, Sticky Fingers isn't bad, but again, where do we put it, right? Something has to get cut. We're at the point where stuff has to be removed for us to play something else. And if we're already saying, like, okay, maybe we want one Jetmir as an option, right? That's going to be a thing. Maybe we want a third Jenny Faye. Maybe we want a third stimulus package. Maybe we want some more Thieves. Meaning, like, I don't know, maybe Smelter. Well, maybe these have to go. Maybe we don't even ramp up anymore. Right? We just need room. Maybe we say, like, we're not ramping. Celestis is fine, But I don't know. Like, the problem is the other things we're playing at 3 produce treasure. I think that's the biggest thing. Raya Rat, you're missing the point. We're not trying to make a great deck. We're trying to play Bootlegger Stash. I've noticed you've said cut Bootlegger Stash multiple times. That's literally the reason we're doing this exercise. Like, it's not about the deck being great. Like, we know, like, I already have a good version of Artifact Aggro. I mean, with Gruul. Like, we know that's a thing we can do. I have regular Gruul lists that are already good. We know that's a thing we can do. The thing is now is, can we do something that takes advantage of all this treasure and Bootlegger Stash? That's what we're trying to figure out. The answer may ultimately be no. Like, let's be real about it, right? The answer might just be no. But we're going to see. The thing I would say here, though, is Teething Wormlet might suffer a bit because we don't have a ton of actual artifacts, right? We've got Dragon Spark Reactor, we have Stimulus Package that makes artifacts, and we have Bootlegger Stash. I guess technically we have Jewel Thief. Everything else has some type of stipulation on making the artifacts, right? Like, if we manage to get Wormlet followed by Gallic Readers and they live somehow, then sure, we can just keep making treasure and keep growing the Wormlet. But otherwise, it's like we have to make contact with a Facebreaker. We have to get in there with the Fable or whatever, right? So maybe the Wormlet has to go, which makes me feel really bad. I see more value in either Explorer or Historic, but it can't come fast enough to be a threat. I don't understand the statement. Like, we know Bootlegger Stash is going to be slow. That's fine. Like, the thing is, again, are the other cards good enough with each other if we don't get Bootlegger Stash? That's what we're focusing on right now. Then if it works and we get the stash, then we just get to go ham and crazy stuff happens, right? In a perfect world. It may still not, but that would be the goal. But yeah, I think maybe we cut a Wormlet or a Goldhound, I think, on some level. Could be worth even going down an additional one or whatever and playing some number. Man, I kind of want to play the Loam Speaker and I kind of don't, I think is my issue right now. Do we have anything else? Wait till you see the stash and oh yeah, I know that's going to happen and it's going to suck, but that's the risk you take when you're brewing weird decks. Like, I have no doubt that's going to happen some number of times. Like you've seen in many of my videos, sometimes you keep and say, well, it's basically as good as a mulligan to 5 or a mulligan to 6 or whatever, and you just play it. Okay. Let me give this a little more thought here. Like, if we don't play Loam Speaker, what's the worst that happens? Like, here's the reason I think we can go without Loam Speaker. Well, the problem is we don't have a ton of stuff on 2 either. We could get more Smelters. So then you'd have Smelter, Gallic Readers, Dragon Spark Reactor to cast. Maybe turn a couple of Loam Speakers into Voltage Surge, since we'll have some number of artifacts or treasure. Red or green prototypes to trigger the reactor. There's one good green one. The red ones are all kind of expensive. Can we play test this? No, that'll be for me to do, and then you'll get a YouTube video and find out if it works or not. That's the fun part of doing this on stream, because otherwise I'm just doing a stream that's going to be on YouTube with the gameplay, and then you see a video that's a gameplay, and that'd just be silly. So we get to build it, and then you get to anticipate a video incoming. Prototype to trigger the reactor. Yeah, really, there's just the green one, I think. The Amalgam is probably the only one I would play. But I don't think we really need to, though. Because in the end, if things are working, again, we have multiple things. Visions of Phyrexia. Maybe. I'm not like, I don't love that. At that point, I would just play, whatever. The other one where you can discard a card and draw 2 and make treasure. I would just play that before I played the Visions. Because then that just does make us treasure, and we automatically get to see 2 cards, and we're not waiting around. I wouldn't play the other. Because again, we don't really even have anything to spin other than just getting the card. We don't really have any, and on the turns we don't get to play the card, we don't have anything to spend the Power Stone mana on, really, other than like activating Dragon Spark Reactor. I think is the problem. So I'd rather just do the thing that gets the treasure, because treasures actually interact with a lot more of our cards. You know what I mean? Like, treasures, while still the same thing as a Power Stone, but like treasures can trigger the Wormlet, we can draw cards from Facebreaker, we can make tokens with Jenny Faye, we can make bodies with the Stimulus package, right? All of those are better than just having a Power Stone. Gets a dead draw out of the deck. I don't understand. Like, that would be the same thing as the other thing, though, that just draws 2 on the spot and gives us 2 treasure, right? And it ramps us up. Like, I would just take that, and it's an instant speed thing, so I could leave mana up to do multiple things, and if they don't do anything, then I just try to draw cards during their end step. I'd rather do that, honestly. That feels way more exciting to me than playing the Visions of Phyrexia. I don't hate the card, but I think that's designed for a much slower, grindier deck, and something that's going to be taking advantage of those Power Stones. Like, I don't think that, again, because there's multiple cards we looked at that I like the idea of it, but ultimately we're going to be creating cards that we can't, or tokens that we can't really take advantage of. Like I said, except for Dragon Spark Reactor, but I mean, if we're at a point where we just need to trigger the Dragon Spark Reactor, we probably won the game anyway. All right, so I'm going to assume, let's say we don't play Loam Speaker, which may or may not be a mistake. We'll find out. But let's say we don't. As an exercise, this deck, however, Optimize, has no leverage against removal, and also has no removal. We do have leverage against removal. We have Stimulus Package. And Fable, technically, because it leaves an enchantment behind, potentially, that we could do something with, or whatever. So it's not like we have nothing. And you have Dragon Spark Reactor. So I wouldn't say there's nothing against removal. It's not super strong against removal, like, obviously. What happens if you don't draw Jenny Faye or Bootlegger Stash? Then we try to draw Stimulus Package. Or we try to grow Wormlets and Galagreeters. Or we try to attack with Smelter tokens. Like, that's what we're doing. Like, now, do we want a big finisher? Yeah, I could go for that. But if I was, I'd probably just play the dragon. The haste dragon that I could just spend X on. Or spend treasure and just play Zeotora and just make more treasure. Either of those I'd probably do before just playing the Devastator. No, the problem with Black Market Tycoon is there may be a lot of times we need to sit on our treasure. Right? That's the problem. I thought about it, but like if the board state's not right, we may want to set up some treasure for a turn to set something up, to do something with the Stimulus Package Jenny Faye, or maybe do something, search for cards with a Facebreaker, right? Because if you have the other dude, you just end up taking a bunch of damage while it sits there, and that's not so good. I don't mind that card, though, if I'm playing a version, like let's say we were playing the more aggro-heavy version, right? We're not playing Bootlegger Stash and Stimulus Package and all that. Then I don't mind it as much, because we're using the mana almost instantly. And then if we're at a point where it's just going to sit there, then I'm fine just getting rid of it, because it doesn't matter. How about Rada's Firebrand for an early threat that makes treasure for... at that point, again, I think that's for a different type of deck. I don't think that really helps anything else in the deck, honestly. I'm just trying to think, like, what else we can do here. Like, I'm tempted to just say no defense. Slagstone Refinery with both that ramps up Dragon Spark Reactor very fast before you send the treasure to activate it. I don't even... What? I swear, I feel like y'all have just made up cards, but never effect or another artifact, non-artifact... Well, okay. First, it's when this or a non-token artifact comes into play, which isn't going to be very many cards in this deck. Is put in the graveyard from the battlefield, or is put into exile from the battlefield. This would never make anything. Like, this for real just wouldn't make anything. Because all of our artifacts are going to effectively be treasure. I mean, I guess outside of Goldhound or something. Oh no, I already said if I was going to play anything, it would just be this guy. Like, we just go back to playing this and just spend our treasure that's sitting there on this guy and just try to hit for like 7 or something. That would be my out if we wanted to do something. Like that would probably be it. Um yeah, I think the only thing I'm hesitant on here is I kind of want to just go no defense. I mean, Dragon Spark Reactor obviously. But outside of that, just virtually no defense and just say, can we just get the job done? I don't know that we can, but I almost want to try. Aerith in the deck? I almost feel like y'all are naming cards y'all just want to see in a deck that don't do anything. Yeah, this doesn't do anything. If you draw a card, exile top 2 cards. Yeah, why would we play this? Exile top 2 cards instead, and you can play those cards this turn. I mean, we have treasure, but that's probably worse than a Fable. Probably worse than a professional Facebreaker. Definitely worse than a Jewel Thief. Like, yeah. Like, I don't hate any of these cards, but I feel like a lot of those, like, y'all have been holding on to a point where, like, you want to get a card into a deck, and I just don't know. I think we looked at Horde Hauler earlier. Like, it probably doesn't make the cut either. Yeah. I mean, it's fine. But at 4 mana, I think we just want to be doing other things. Let's see. Let me go to draw 2, discard. Where are we at? This, big score. We're going to play a couple of those. And then I think... Man, did we just say play another Smelter? Because Smelter's still a 3-1, even on its own. Like, it's still a real... Or it's a 2-2 that makes it 3-1. So, like, still a reasonable body. But again, I kind of want another Devastator. Yeah. Maybe I'm just on 61 cards with Devastator. This feels very greedy. After all this feels extremely greedy. I'm not gonna lie. I think we only do 2 Bootlegger stash. I think that's all we can do. I want to do more, but I think that's all we can do. We need more activated abilities to spend mana on. No, we have things that eat mana. Smelter eats mana. Professional Facebreaker eats mana. Jenny Faye or Stimulus Package can both eat mana. Like, so we're not... The thing is, this is what we've been talking about the whole time. I think that's where people's mindsets have been different. This isn't a ramp deck in the sense of we need the treasure to get the mana. This is a ramp deck in the sense of we just want to make treasure. Like, most of our treasure in a perfect world will not be generating mana. It will be used for something else. Like, it will be used to draw cards. It will be used to make creatures. It will be used to do something, to make a 3-1, whatever, right? It is not going to be used to make mana. Now, early on, there may be a couple of times where, like, maybe turn 3, we play a creature, we get a mana from the Galagreeters, and then that sets us up to do something with, like, a Stimulus Package or whatever. Like, cool, right? But generally speaking, we're not going to be spending the treasure as treasure. Did you wear green to make a green deck? Nah, just coincidence today. I had a green shirt on, decided I'd wear my green glasses. But, I mean, my green glasses are kind of one of my 2 daily drivers, as far as glasses. Yeah, so I feel like in this build, all the parts are there. The reality is, against some decks, it's just going to do nothing. Right? If we go up against well, I wouldn't even say that, because even against the blue deck, we have enough real threats. I don't know, what does this have, like 25 creatures? 24. All right. 24 plus Stimulus Package. So, I mean, it's all right. I mean, maybe one more Dragon Spark Reactor, since that's kind of the only defense we have. Maybe we go 61. I don't know. Prototype Dragon. I don't even know what it is, but I have a feeling it's the thing that we can fire breathe, and I'm not going to play that. No. Like, again, I'd rather just play like Zeatora or something. Like, just have a big body that's cheaper to cast. Yosha declares war. Nope. 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 Not interested. Like, this literally just makes an O2 and then does nothing, effectively. Like, I mean, sure, if we have a perfect world where we've already got Bootlegger Stash and we have like 15 treasures sitting on the board and for some reason haven't used it for something, and we get Yosha Declares War, we can tap it to deal damage. Like, that's cool, but that's not a likely scenario to happen. So, probably not. Like, I like the idea. I like the mindset. Like, if we had a bunch of treasures sitting around and then we drew this, like, T-1 turn. Well, not that, because we could just do it that turn. We could just skip to the second one, tap all our stuff. So, that's not bad. If we had some card that let us tap mana to deal damage, I would be more excited about it. But I feel like this doesn't really work since it's like that turn or nothing. You know what I mean? I wish that green elf wasn't just non-token artifacts could tap for mana, because then we could do some cool stuff like tapping the mana, sacking it to Facebreaker, drawing, casting what we draw. Like, I think we could do some cool stuff with that. So like I could almost be into that. But it feels like it could be kind of cool. But I don't know. Yeah, I think we're just gonna call this greed, because that's what this deck is. It's basically all offense, make treasure, and hope you get to the finish line. That's kind of all that's happening here. I will tell you a real downside to this deck, though, in all seriousness, is that the overwhelming majority of the things we're going to play are susceptible to cut down. And that's real. So, like, even a professional Facebreaker, like, we may not get value out of it for a turn. You know what I mean? Like, you need to connect, like, you almost need to have something play it. So you will have to sequence your cards very well to decide what you're willing to put at risk or not. But the good news of this is because we have, like, Goldhound, Wormlet, Gallagreeters, those will draw some amount of heat before we get to our better cards. So it could work out. Arms Race? Put a card. Nope. This also doesn't really do much. I mean, we put an artifact card for, which again, we don't have many artifacts from hand on the battlefield. It gains haste, then we sacrifice it. So at best, we'd pay 2 mana less for a Bootlegger Stash, get it into play, and then have no mana to spend on the Bootlegger Stash, and then we sacrifice it. Oh yeah. I'm not saying be afraid of cut down. Like, I'm just saying it is something that when you're playing, you'll have to keep top of mind because it's a possibility. So, like, that's real. But I do like the idea of, you know, Gallagreeters followed by Smelter, and then Smelter can immediately turn the treasure into a 3/1 and give the opponent something to worry about. Like, stuff like that, I think, is actually some cool interactions in here that I haven't played in other decks, which could be kind of fun, to be honest. And the funny thing is, too, if you have a Dragonspark Reactor out and you sack the treasure, you do make a 3/1 treasure thing, so you do get another trigger on your Dragonspark Reactor, so there's that too. So there are some cool things the deck does, to be real. Like, it has real options. I guess the other thing too is, do we just want 2 Devastator, or do we want like 1 Devastator, 1 Zeatora? Is there anything that untaps lands? Dude, that's a good question. I don't think there is. No, there's untap creature. This lets you untap a creature or a land. I mean, but you can do it 1 time. That's not really what you're going to want. Yeah, there's really nothing. This, if it gets blocked, you can untap 3. Yeah, not really. You untap a permanent. It could be a land. Yeah, not really a thing. Enter the battlefield, untap target land. Yeah, just 1, and it becomes a tree folk. Civic Gardener. Yeah, again, it just untaps a land. That's not really enough. Over the Top. That's a card I haven't thought about in a while. Over the Top. 7 mana. Each player reveals the number of cards on top of by equal to the number of non-land permanents they control. Put all permanent cards they revealed this way onto the battlefield. Put the rest into their graveyard. We did do an over the top deck at the beginning of the season. I mean, maybe. Mostly in the sense that if we hit the right things onto the battlefield, we could still get enough hasty things to probably try to finish the game. But it would have to be like the right sequence of cards to even make that a thing. I don't know. Maybe. Thanos tinkering looks like a poor man's wannabe Rise and Shine. Kinda is. Yeah, over the top's a good question though. Like that's at least one that's worth thinking about on some level. Like, I think my concern would be playing over the top and bootlegger stash because they're both kind of expensive. But I mean, if we had 4 or 5 treasure out plus like 3 creatures, like that's real. Yeah, I don't know. I would have to think about it because I mean our deck is basically all permanents, outside of big score, I guess. So like, there's something to that. So I don't want to completely dismiss the idea. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it could be. Like, I'll be honest, I don't hate it. That's a real question. Karn viable or too much? Yeah, I don't think Karn is viable because we would just use it just to dig. Because like making power stones doesn't do anything for us. I mean, here's the thing. We could. I'm wondering if you'd want to play that over a Jetmir, is the thing. Because I think we're playing 5 cards at the upper end, right? It's 2 Devastator, Bootlegger Stash, Jetmir. Though Jetmir's not really the top end, but he's kind of one of our end finishers, potentially, right? So, do we replace like a Devastator and just play 1 Devastator, play over the top? Because I was kind of thinking about playing Devastator and Zeatora. And playing 1 of each. But I don't hate over the top, though. I actually do kind of like that idea. Blade Coil Serpent? No. We'd have to spend too much treasure to get any ability out of it. Like, the haste part of it doesn't really do much. You really want to play it when you can draw cards. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we can use that for the reactor, but that's barely good enough. I do like the idea of over the top, though. I'm trying to talk myself into it, I think is all that's happening right now. Like, if we were to play it, where would I fit it in? And I don't know what that answer is. Like, could I cut 1 stimulus package? But stimulus package works well with a lot of other cards, Nah, I don't know if I could cut a Fable. Fable's one of the few ways, like, it's Fable and Big Score are draw cards. I don't think we could cut a Fable. Like, if I cut anything, it probably has to be Stimulus Package or Jetmir. I think, honestly. I don't think we could cut anything else. But the problem is even Stimulus Package kind of helps facilitate, potentially, getting over the top or getting a benefit from it. So, I don't even know. And we're only playing 24 lands, so I don't think we can go too much heavier. I mean, I guess we could play it as a 61st card. I mean, we do have a lot of stuff that creates treasures, and we have Goldhound, so, I mean, that's not nothing. But, ugh. I don't know. Maybe. Because, like I said, I like the idea of Zeatora just to have another just real body, right? Just another big over the top. The thing about Jetmir, though, you have to remember is like, even if you don't get it to double strike level, just getting +2 and trample on like 4 guys or 5 guys is going to be enough. Like, I've won many, many games without getting to the double strike portion. Especially since you can catch your opponent off guard with something like Stimulus Package, because you're like, hey, end of your turn, I'm going to make like 4 dudes, and then just play Jetmir. I know with Treasure Deck, Color Splash is not a problem. But I'd say Jetmir for... Oh, yeah. Like, getting 1 white mana will not be an issue for Jetmir. Not by the time we need it, because our goal isn't to play Jetmir on turn 4, right? Your goal is to play Jetmir on, like, turn 6 or 7 or something. So, same thing with Zeatora. It would be a black mana we would need, but, like, we don't need it till way late in the game. So I'm not worried about that part. Well, remember, over the top also affects your opponent, doesn't it? Yeah, it's each player. So it's not one-sided. Like, your opponent could also hit their big card they need to as well. I mean, they hit a couple of big flyers, and they get to attack before we do, we're dead. You know, that's the other part of it. Or heaven forbid they're playing something like Troxel. That's not very often, though, fortunately. Or, you know, they get their Titans or something, right? Then that becomes a problem. So it's not completely one-sided. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to think like scenarios of, let's say we got rid of 7 things. Do we think we could hit 7 relevant things to go off? Because the possibility is you might hit lands as well, right? Let's say you only get 4 real things and 3 lands. Was that worth getting rid of the rest of your board? Don't know. Especially if the board was just all treasure. Right? Like, if it was all treasure, then maybe, right? But if it's even like a Fable token, Fable, treasure, something, like, I don't know if that's better. I think that's my issue right now. It's like, I don't know if I can either A, make enough things, like say we get to like 13 permanents, and do something, make sure we hit stuff with over the top, or do we get a combination of things that I can still maybe turn those tokens into haste cats or something with the Jenny Fay to still attack for like 8 or something and in the game. Mech Titan Core, I don't think Mech Titan Core works in here. I'm pretty sure you need artifact creatures or vehicles. Exile Mech Titan Core and 4 other artifact creatures and or vehicles. Yeah, it wouldn't work in here. We don't even have anything to sacrifice to it. I mean, literally just Goldhound. So, like, that wouldn't work. Yeah, again, I like the idea of over the top. I don't think it's our answer. If I was going to do that, I think I'd feel better just playing one Ziatora. Because if nothing else, I can just ramp into just playing one big body and, like, whatever. And if I sack something, it's more treasure, and treasure can be turned into other things in this deck or whatever. And there's extra value there, potentially. I think I like that better. Brotherhood Zen is your worst number? Yeah, Brotherhood Zen will be bad. Like, that's fine. We know the risk.